Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon. This is Shirley with Spirit of Matter, and I'm in an episode of Let's Treat My Toenail Fungi. So you can find these episodes under The Rebel in the Dead Camp. And right now I'm going to use, before rosemary, I'm going to open up with some eucalyptus. So the way that you do it is basically, and this is also when you do it at home, have a good dilution. By the way, I also made a special blend right now, which I have to admit is comprised of recycled stuff. So I'm going to open with the eucalyptus and then turn to with the blend. So you dilute the oils. If it is the skin, then you dilute it. It's a concentrated dilution, but you do it on the spot where the skin is. You don't want to ruin your skin, okay? That's the point. Gonna have to do some cleaning, so let me get something. So yeah, I just came back from outside and I didn't have time to record in the morning. Basically, you want to have dilution between vegetable oil that you know is an actual oil. I know that's a thing. I know it's difficult to know who is who and what is what. Make sure you clean your feet naturally. And the next thing that you want to make sure is that you somehow either record yourself or you have a journal, because the way we do holistic health is we are observant. This is a very scientific and artistic, okay, because we are unifying things that fell apart, and we are also tending to things that have been condensed. So you want to keep record of what's happening, what's coming up, what are the insights, what happened during the day when you did that. This will also help you to continue on, okay? So you won't have to worry too much about, failing it or not having a motivation as you would if you didn't keep track. It will also it's also a good practice of pattern recognition. Anyone who deals with anything, atlas foot, fungal infection, candida, anything that touches on the nervous system, when Pluto is now in Aquarius, you want to learn about the nervous system, okay? You want to begin to understand what's the connection between what you think is an aesthetic issue and your nervous system. What causes this stagnation and how things are interrelated. Pattern recognition in a non-linear dynamic system is something that we are going to need in the world in general. You're going to need that to identify. Think about the sky, okay? Think about the birds. Okay, they need to recognize the wind. They need to work within a system where there are planes and there are changes and everything is very quick, and they can be storms, and you have to navigate your way. Now, there's some attribute about the nervous system that I like mentioning. When I was in academia, we had an experiment, and the experiment went like this. We were told to just walk randomly and not bump into each other. As a group, first few times people bumped into each other. Second time, third time, fourth time, people began to smoothly walk around each other, and even though we were pretty close, not bump into each other. Now you ask, how is this possible? This is an attribute of our nervous system, is that it learns to identify And even when somebody moves around, now you're going to be really freaked out when you think about the application on AI, right? Even when you move around, the system, it works like a fungi. Okay? What does it mean? Fungi, not unlike a forest, is a type of living. It's a distinct type of existence that is global and recognizes itself across the globe. So the nervous system is operating in a pretty similar fashion. It's not for nothing that you see in cults that want to control the world, symbolism of the fungi, but also when people seek to recover from trauma, they go to psychedelics, which is a sort of fungi. There are fungi that people take to improve their health, and there are fungi that do the opposite. So discernment, okay, just other facets of Age of Aquarius that we all need. And so some fungi are good for people, some fungi can absolutely destroy our health, and we need to learn to have discernment. So now, after I cleaned up a little bit, and I always like to brush my feet a little, make the blood flow, okay? We're creating change in the area. And you want to do it daily. That means already what? That your daily routine has to adapt itself. This is what I love about being a holistic health practitioner, okay? Because, and this is not medical advice, this is knowledge from experience, so that is very important. I'm not giving you medical advice, I'm giving you knowledge from experience. You're gonna have to adapt it to your own and see if it works for you, if it doesn't work for you. And let me tell you a little secret. This is the best that you can get, okay? You'll never get something that's more accurate than that. And I say that as philosopher of medicine, because I did my thesis proposal in philosophy of medicine, and actually was targeted because it was right before COVID, and there were a lot of forces operating. They are doing the inversion of the sciences, okay, what Feynman called the cult-like sciences, although he himself was a part of the cult. So brushing your feet, making the blood flow. And if you are recording yourself, or you could be doing that while you are recording something, creating something in a way that you can keep track of, and it can help you to concentrate as well, okay? Or some of you might want to meditate on that, it's okay. I like to pay attention, okay? And assisting the blood to flow, right now particularly to the feet area, is creating already change that is internal and external. Okay, we want to have rejuvenation in the area, and this is very Pluto, okay? It's having rejuvenation in the area. First of all, it's good for our hormonal system, very, very balancing. And if you already do some work with essential oils, you're going to be noticing that there's going to be a calling to a particular oil, and you want to be discerning, you want to pay attention to all of your body movement. Targeted individual, people dealing with spiritual warfare or the mass rape that's going on in the world right now, in the astral. Okay, this is where you want to pay attention, okay? If you're being targeted, you want to keep using, you want to call on the nervous system to abort that attack. We're talking about an open source nervous system. So is our economy. And I want to talk about something that happened to me just this morning. I'm living in a village where there's a lot of orthodoxy. And orthodoxy, they don't use the phone like we use the phone. They don't have internet the way we have internet. Everything is very closed circuit. There's pros and cons to that. One thing that they will have problem with is the digital currency. And I was contacting the head of the community, and I was telling them about the problem that they have in the image of the community. There's a mother whose child was being taken from her by completely secular psychology and psychiatry. Okay, Ruth Schramm. And the people who are in charge was the welfare that took the children and put them back with the father, who was unfortunately pedophile, allegedly, but I believe her, and used them for ceremonial magic, okay, for ritual abuse. And again, ceremonial magic is not a good or bad thing, but if you use children there, then it's probably not a good thing, right? You're not supposed to be abusing children for ceremonies. And so, or animals for that record. And so this is something that became a big problem. And the Gur Hasidim are being very, very targeted because of it. Now, when I speak to the people and I live around the people, first of all, the people might suffer from that. You might see if a person has communication issue, something to do with the linguistic, the expression of the words, that can be associated with that. And you see that people are very nice. I would go with a dress in the summer and I would get religious women saying, oh, you look great in that dress, and so on. You see no religious persecution whatsoever from the common people. And even when I would have a conversation, they would be very willing to hear about, growing a forest and the importance to have space between the houses and the fact that this is the biggest city. So I see that people, all in all, are very, very tolerant, very okay, and the people that are doing the problems is very likely they're sent in order to create fights between the communities. Now, of course, every community has its own issues. Satanic ritual abuse is also happening in indigenous tribes, and we need to take care of that across the board. Okay, we need children to have childhood. So I was basically contacting this community and I say that I see attempts to build a ghetto concentration camp in this city and to try and pit people against each other. So I addressed the case for Ruth Schramm. I said it's very bad for the community because people think that it's coming from within them, where it's actually coming from completely secular cults that perhaps infiltrate or not infiltrate. And I addressed the issue of, since the Inuit, we know that it's important for every solitary person to have house, and for children to have childhood, and for marriage to be only consensual and also sex. So that was the beginning of addressing something that's bigger than my own problems when it came to housing, when it came to things that bother me, and when it came to not be succumbing to hatred and division, but and also not ignoring the things that are taboo to speak about. So I made it very clear that if a person like me, let's say, would run away from the area, then it's not that they will bring more of the community, they will bring people that are very, very malefic and make a lot of problems in order to create an image of problems between the secular and the non-secular community. And that is already a move that's very plutonic, that is very powerful, that is taking the power and not complying with hatred. Okay, because I could easily say, succumb to, hey, they do ritual abuse, they do this, they do that, but it's not like the secular people don't do it. And it's not like the children are not kidnapped by completely secular authorities. And if I take the case for the Ruth Schramm, all the people involved in the case, including the social worker, nearly all of them, except for the father, were completely secular. So that's something to also address. It's very easy to, think about the people that dress funny, but the people that do crime, they don't usually dress funny, they blend into the crowd. And they blend into the crowd very, very well. So they know so well to pretend and to play parts. And sometimes it's not even to pretend, because they're people, right? Some of them were tortured, some of them went through a lot of things. So here I am beginning to work with the patchouli. Very calming. I love the effect on that, and immediately I feel like I have some energy that I need to remove, to purge for my body. Another thing I noticed, I have to admit, I told you I don't want people to cover their mirrors and so on, but I was at the property today, I did cover the mirror, and I wrote for anybody who's bothering to look at the mirror that the mirror is doing human trade, especially if they look out the window, because the window is open. So just to make sure that I stay active in creating change. Okay, because taking action to change the situation is very important. And I made some more salves and creams and really, really lovely. And I had a salve that was spilled on the car, in the car, so I hope it's going to bring good rejuvenation. And yeah, you might see when you do this, you might see that there is some resistance from forces that don't want you to heal, don't want you to recover, because you're tending to taboo things when you're dealing with fungi, or even when you're dealing with your teeth or anything Plutonian or nervous system. Okay, maybe you go around the vagus nerve, then you're basically tending, you think about a newcomer that's tending to the trash of society. Okay, it's your body, but there's some things that were trash to you, but it's nervous system. So first of all, it does change and alter entire nervous system. It creates all kinds of responses. Okay, on a social level, people have to move, but people want to control for what's happening with the entire nervous system, and this is exactly what awakens us. Okay, so it's kind of, hey, look, your Luciferian practice, you could say it is working because we are awakening. Okay, and so now it's time to change, because you don't have to control society so much. We are growing, and we are awakening to the fact that, let's say, the people we thought are elite were growing up in torture that wouldn't shame the children of the Holocaust. Okay, so the fear to be discovered might be a bit lessened, a little and little. And I'm using a blend that has so many oils in it that I'm not sure even what is what. But the thing about it is that this is recycled stuff. And Pluto is about recycled. So I'm using recycled blend on my toenails. And this is an experiment to see how will my toenails respond. Now here's the thing about fungi. Some fungi, it doesn't matter what you do, you won't be able to consume them in a way that is healthy for you. Some fungi is not the same. So what I would, because our nervous system is so connected with fungi, it can be the case that instead of some people will always be this way, which I don't say it's true, I don't say it's not true. Let's think about the fungi. So it can be the case that the people that we think we couldn't get along with are just different, composed differently because of their nourishment, their nutrition, their habits. And sometimes it's genuinely not the same type. Okay, it's generally a foraging matter. So we want to hold space for both. I definitely think that the parameter of torturing children since they were in the womb is a good C factor for when we say this person is a monster, and we say this person is so kind and nice, and sometimes they're the same person. So you think about the masking, you think about the neurodivergent masking that people have to wear. And then when you talk about it, you might feel resistance because there are forces that might be operating to try and Stop what you're tending to, okay? They make money from, or they make living, or they make something, or they are just not ready for change, or many, many things. But you see, every sovereign has the right to do for themselves and to be healthy. And so you might feel like you need to push away some things from your system, and that might be, yes, various levels of challenging. I hear very loud music from outside, so I also pay attention to that. I think I began to work at Mars hour, and the moon is applying to trine Mars. It is going to go over Rahu, which is ruled by Mars, triggering the applying opposition to Pluto. So you see, this is very unusually loud music. And I have to admit, when I lived in the village, okay, they also had that type of loud music sometimes. And this is very strange. It's also a very strange hour for that. It is unusual of why they do that. It's unusual if whether it is an intentional disturbance or not. So I just do my thing and let it play. And I have some self that I made is also recycled. So Pluto's a lot of recycled things. So you make something and then you blend it around, or maybe something you made a while ago, then you blend it around. This is so much compatible with the spirit of the times, because Aquarius is a lot about taking something from one period in history and another thing from another period in history and blending them. So it's astrological magic, but so is what I do now with essential oils. It's an unusual technique that is adaptable to Pluto, and I'm doing an experiment. So you see, whatever many forces that supposedly act not in favor of the female voice, a podcast, okay? It shows that we need a lot more space, a lot more living space. And we have bad connotation with living space because you say, oh my God, Hitler said that. But Hitler said that according to bloodline, and Pluto was between Cancer and Leo during the Second World War. However, Hitler also painted nice pictures of House by the Lake. And because he was not able to fund his art, there were other means, there were other places, okay, for not to be killed, not to be trafficked. He chose other venues. So Adolf Hitler had also Venus-Uranus, so he had Uranus in Libra. And the war was, I guess when he was around 60, because that would be Uranus on Beta Persei. So above 60. And the thing is, when you talk about the funding for art, at that time, the styles that were funded, and you have to understand that funding is everything in art. Money will tell you what is the spirit of the time artistically. They will decide for you what pictures you're going to be looking at. Are you going to be looking at Cubism? Are you going to be looking at Surrealism? And there's nothing wrong with those styles, but Adolf Hitler brought something to the forefront that is very reminding of Uranus-Taurus, that is the house by the lake. And it was out of the spirit of the time. It was actually very innovative. Venus ruled both his Uranus in Libra and his Sun and Mars. And what he did initially with the Sun and Mars in Taurus is to paint oil paintings, which I find a magnificent way of how a person naturally, with his natural creative abilities, is his own healer. Now, you wouldn't expect that to hear that about Adolf Hitler, because all we know is what happened to him when that route was confiscated. And right now is such a good time, because if the people who fund the art don't want you to be exposed to housing that is supportive of your nervous system just in time where society is shocked and traumatized, because what you would need is housing where is fit for both claustrophobia and agoraphobia. That means that there's not too many people outside, but also it's not this closed place that you can't get out of. You would need to be around nature, and you would need a water source like a lake next to you. So if I take the picture from 1923 of the house by the lake painted by Adolf Hitler, this was fantastic with the spirit of the time. He was moving with the spirit. This was the antidote to whatever he will actually do when he was recruited by intelligence in 1919 and was sent to spy on a movement called DAP, as a right-wing movement that was a working class movement. Now, another thing, back to Aquarius. Aquarius is such a great time because Aquarius is when we adapt the surroundings to us. And I'd like to take a tip from a YouTuber, and I don't remember his name, but this is Coach to Good Life Habits. And he wanted to play guitar. So what he did, he put the guitar in between the living space, the living room, and his working space. So whenever he would go to the bathroom or to the kitchen or to get coffee, he would bump into the guitar, and the guitar was always on the way. So much so that if he didn't play it, he would have to remove it because he could not unsee the guitar. And this is how we create an environment that supports our nervous system, that prompt us to do the good habits instead of the bad habits. So you want to pay attention to your surroundings and begin to ask yourself today, how could I change my surroundings in a way that is more compatible with my nervous system? I, for example, have a lot of salves and oils right next to my bed. That means the minute I wake up in the morning and I record and I put some oil on my face, on my eyes, on my feet, then it's right there for me. I don't have to work too hard to do that. And it's also pleasurable, okay? It's a pleasurable way to tend to my nervous system and to do something that, yes, is fixed, is routine, but also has a lot of divergence in it. And I'd like to move into the eucalyptus, because I said eucalyptus, but I didn't put on eucalyptus, I think. Right? I took it out, and that would be a great time. Eucalyptus, like I said, it grows in swamps. Nothing grows a meter next to it. And it's a good time to remember that the teacher who taught me that was later targeted by MK Ultra, and she was made to betray me, to try to get me into jail or hospital. And she was actually a woman that helped me see that for the pills that they wanted to give me, they were not supportive of treating my toenail fungi. And since toenail fungi is something of the nervous system, then I would need to move to another methods of tending to that, more holistic, to tend to the core of the issue. Unfortunately, she was tending to fertility. She was doing great things, but she was targeted. Then she began to give me prompts to try to fail me and so on. And again, that betrayal is orchestrated by this system that we know since the Cold War, but also since 1948, called MK Ultra, and it's permeating to business. We saw it in the makeup industry, attempt to put people in human trafficking or as recruiters. So I guess she was trying to bargain a way out of her life. So here I am giving her credit as aromatherapist, so that she can make money as a aromatherapist and not, God forbid, be in the human trade, which will be very malefic for her and for her surroundings. And so she taught us that eucalyptus tree grows and nothing grows next to it in a meter space. And that means that this is an oil that is good to give you space. And what does it else help for addictions? So you understand that when you have enough space to be yourself, you're not that addicted because your boundaries are respected. So let's bring in that quality of eucalyptus. And you see there's so much resistance trying to invade my space. And what are we going to do with that? We're going to alchemize that, and we're going to be aware. I'm going to call on the entire nervous system of eucalyptus to bring space to the entire nervous system so people can be respected and get out of any type of addictive patterns that they may have. I'm going to call in the entire nervous system globally, and to abort any attempts to invert or mirror or interfere or invade right now our energy space, each individual energy space, and the energy space altogether. So basically those attempts to invade, they can unnerve people. They can, they try to make your space smaller. Well, actually, if they try to make your space smaller, it needs to be double time bigger. And I talked about the property where I live. I was compromising for this property. And you see, the more you compromise for your space, then something will happen. But also my parent, they were saying, I will live with little. I will make myself small. And that brought so bad effect that now they have me inside their house reminding them that we need to change. You cannot be making yourself small all the time. It's not healthy. And so the situation on a holistic level is such that now I am this influence upon my parent, where I keep reminding them, hey, I need my space. Hey, I need my thing. No, you cannot block, for the passage. Hey, you remember you also had where you cannot have people blocking the passage, and so on. So I'm standing up for myself, but this is a good reminder that the issue that they cannot be living in a space that is small, and we're still gonna have to have separate mansions. For example, I saw an article about old couples, and it says old couples that live in separate houses are healthier. I have been saying that to people for years and years and years. You need to have 2 households. You don't get married to get a discount in the apartment. This kills your marriage. And the fact that we as society have been agreeing to adapt to smaller spaces, and I can say about myself, before I moved to that place where I lived recently, I lived in a 1 room. And being half Dutch, it's something for my lineage that, and again, when I say lineage, it doesn't necessarily mean bloodline. Satanic ritual abuse depletes fertility and depletes sperm count. So we don't actually have 75% Dutch at all, okay? Not with the clones either. And you see how deep resistance I meet when I say the truth, because some people are afraid to tend to that. No. No need to be afraid to tend to that. Okay, my father acknowledged me when I was 16 and gave it the passport. There's no need to be afraid to tend to that. And because satanic ritual abuse and cloning and the cults of inversion was so prevalent, and Dutchies were confiscated because of that, then it's something that's still a problem in society tremendously, a problem with our politique. This is why we had the entire government that didn't do impeachment when the 1,100 children were kidnapped because the parents filled the form incorrectly for child support during COVID. Okay, and people say, Ruti, now we don't like Ruti. You liked him for 20 years. It was good for you. It was accommodating for 20 years. You called him a Teflon Mark. You called him the Trump whisperer. But suddenly you don't like him because he became even more successful, where in fact the whole parliament could have impeached, but the whole parliament went through satanic ritual abuse, including Rutte himself. So you see, when it comes to that lineage, I was carrying charge from that lineage, because in Netherlands, for example, I did not have housing because I could not afford to be in a place where the private real estate was human trade. There was a makler that offered me whiskey when I was 12, and hoping that my mother would sell me because he thought that we would need apartments, so she would sell me. But she decided no, and we couldn't live in Netherlands, and so I did not get my rights as citizen. So this is a part of why I never tried to be housed in Netherlands, and as a result of that, I was not immersed in the language. It creates problems because emotionally, it's an emotional struggle when something is around your housing, your home, and there's exploitation around that. It fills you with anger, and it makes it more challenging to be exposed to the culture and to immerse in the culture, and to integrate in your own a part of your motherlands. Okay, I have motherlands in Israel and I have motherland in Netherlands, and that is something that I carried with me. So when I was living in a student apartment, I did not ask for more, and that created problems in my life, that created psychic attacks, that created invasion, because I was not asking for enough space for myself. And even when I moved to a better place, it seemed like, oh my God, that this is paradise, and I was dealing with a lot of targeting, a lot of attempts to recruit me to human trafficking. People ask if I'm living alone, really dumb fuckery, and as a result of that, I was not tending to the things that I needed to tend. I was exhausted from looking for another place. I said, I'm going to put my love in that place. But now as I go for the kitchen, of course it needs to be bigger. I'm doing sauce. Of course, when the kitchen is more inviting, it is easier to cook. Okay, the environment invites good habits. You see how many people, if I go to a psychologist that, condemned a mother of 6 and sexually in his report, and he decides with children taken away from their parents. There's huge authority given to a person that does that, and her lawyer suddenly began to have troubles in her personal life, so he could not advance the lawsuit. So you see, the problem is going like this, and you think about when a person, let's say you are a woman or a man divorced, okay, and you manage to somehow have some custody over the child. People would look and say, oh, you don't cook, you don't this, you don't that. Well, if your environment is not supportive of you, it's double times the challenge. And I know, for example, in Finnish society, this element called sisu, which means you persevere through. But if you notice, in Finnish society, people adapt to their surroundings very, very well. For this, it's not just the sisu. You have a sauna when you go to work, a sauna at home. You make sure your things are well. You recycle things, whether it's boxes or stuff like that. Okay, I never lived in Finland. I'm just learning about the culture. And so, yes, when it comes to the weather, there's the element called sisu, that you persevere, and people tend to do things themselves, sometimes to the detriment. But it's also that your environment is very compatible. And this is something we want to keep, because Pluto in Aquarius is about making the environment compatible for that sisu. Because Aquarius is perseverance, it is Saturn sign, it is chaotic weather, it is many things, but we persevere, or we hold that sisu by adapting our environment to a costume for a healthy nervous system for us. So if we need 2 houses, sisu means we're going to build these 2 houses. And I can say this concept, I never named it, but this concept of sisu, I have Aquarius in my 12th house, and a lot of things I received from Finland, whether it's not learning about open dialogue, housing first, that is way more than housing first solution for the homeless. And I invite you to look for how Finland solved the homeless crisis. It's more than housing first. And I know that open dialogue was in Netherlands, but unfortunately people like Hans Semedma still not back in Netherlands, which I think is harming the country. And you want to look for Hans Semedma. It's going to be difficult for you to find him. He talks about very important things. They would paint a very important picture for a country. This is a major country in the world right now. It has the ICC, it has the Crown, associated with the WEF, associated with the WHO, cults like Masons, Opus Dei. And it's very important, okay? Even if you don't speak Dutch, I think getting acquainted with the Dutch culture, but also getting acquainted with good things. Dutch culture also have elements not unlike Finnish, which is a balance of work and rest, okay? The concept that doing nothing, of niksen, is very important for you to be actually active. So nervous system is not the Arbeit macht frei, but is actually good balance of work and rest. And this is mastering the Saturn of Aquarius. There's a lot of openness and a lot of willingness to see, hey, I have a problem. Let's take a look at it holistically. Okay, I had a problem with, let's say, the housing in my city. Well, what does this problem teach me? I don't go away from the problem. I confronted this problem. If it's overwhelming, I go to the periphery of the problem, but I don't go away from the problem. I confront this problem. And this is how, for example, when I was in hospital, there were people that were speaking about things like the government surveillance or alien abduction or canceling sexual polarity, many things that later Gigi Young would speak about. And then, like, you know, like mushrooms after the rain, people would begin to talk about when it was time. And I'm one of those mushrooms, okay? I don't set myself to anything that's a part of this ecosystem. And then I would be curious about what is supposedly the content of their psychosis. And I remember in university, I like to search for the patterns in language that come when people change languages. I really, really liked, because sometimes, let's say a person speaks English, but their grammar and the way they speak is sounding like the original language, and you can get something from the patterns of thought around it. And I loved that. I love to study these anomalies. And when I was surrounded with people that had psychotic content, supposedly, I was so curious about this content. And as I began to speak with them, let's say a person had a mother that told him to erase his tattoo. And so he burned his tattoo, and then the ink, of course, polluted the blood, and he really got hallucinations, right? And then he went to hospital, and I tell him, well, tell your mama, like a common person, okay, tell your mama, when you work, where you have the money, you can make a surgery to erase this tattoo, if you want to please her. But don't do something that will harm you because of that. So he says, you're like a doctor. And I'm like, this is so very funny, because I just speak to you like a normal human being, and you tell me that I'm a doctor. And apparently not. And I asked him, you want to tell me none of these doctors spoke with you about this? And when I saw that people have problems with the beta blockers that were given to them, I saw a lot of crimes against humanity done by people that were supposed to be, would be in your favor. And I've like, could it be that these doctors are also a bit brainwashed, or maybe threatened, because they didn't seem like not nice people, but the result of their action was crime against humanity. Okay, keep a person from going to hospital when she cannot poop, and people tell her it's not from the pill, but also don't take her to emergency. And fortunately she had a family, so I told the family what's going on, and they had to insist to take her to emergency, where of course it was from the pills. Phenergan, I think, I don't remember what was it, a chemist that was cutting Seroquel. Also for the people that were going through electric shock treatment. And you'd be surprised, people actually wanted that treatment. They wanted to have a sudden change in the nervous system and rise from depression. But there was a problem, there was not enough people who do sedation. This is giving MK Ultra. And so basically, with having Aquarius 12th house, I confronted with the signs. And when I say, hey, this pill, I feel is causing bad things, and I'm told, no, it's from the traumas, not from the pill. And I said, scientifically, let's take down the pill now that I'm here, that you can see me, and see how I feel without the pill. This is science. You see, I'm here, I'm 24/7, I'm not going anywhere. You know, I meet you every day. And she said, I cannot hold you here if you don't take a beta blockers. So the reason I began to see what helps me to step on the soil, to do some yoga, to do some agriculture, to paint a little, to roam around. But I thought, was there something in those pills that were helping me? No, not only that, it was doing harm. And I would later learn that that thing is all across the board. It's not just me. There are crime against humanity done under the guise of these pills, but actually it's about real estate, an attempt to confiscate my ability to make money and to be well housed. And that happened as soon as I would go to work, and I would not be ready to do corruption because I wanted work to be interesting. You see, I have Sagittarius 10th house with Uranus in it. I always change around. I want to try new things, and I'm very a good learner, self-learner, self-taught, and it's very. I need to feel a life mission, a meaning in my career. So it's very difficult. Okay, it's a lot like the Pluto Sag generation, that they also have this in a different way. That they need to feel they do something with meaning and purpose. I was just going to the mall on my way to relax at the airport, and there was a woman, a young girl, okay, totally Gen Z, and I hear her talking on the phone, and she said, but I want to work on my product, I want to work on my company. When will I have time to work on my product, on my company? And I really, really like this conversation, because she was calling out and so aware that she wants to do something that's her own. And you know, when you hide this from an employer, it is like a bad relationship. It's like you're dating one woman when you actually want to date another. And this is something that unfortunately cults are not so used to. They used to have a lot of control. Even when people began to choose their marriage partners, there was a lot of intelligence work to put one people with another. And sometimes it's like, hey, that person, they can't stand me, okay? They maybe like me sometimes, but they can't stand me. It's like, why force? And it would be very confusing. So a person find it difficult to even come in contact with their own essence of desire, if you take into account that the people that are either cloned or grew up in the cult also have this problem where they were tortured and so on. So it's even more difficult to go back to the essence of desire. And even when you do that, then that can be setting a lot of triggers. And I totally get this, okay? I think about time when I was triggered, when I was seeing women that survived, let's say, even incest or human trafficking, and they began to grow a garden and so on and live somewhere, and I was like, the fuck, where does she have money to live and to grow garden and all that? And she out of this human trafficking, and I can fucking work. So I'm like, I'm so happy to see her outside of this, but it's also, hey, the fuck, like, how do you, like, what about the people that don't have access to that, okay? And then, you know, I began to understand my needs more, and begin to do with what I can in my own situation. So whether it's I grew the garlic, and then my mama brought me some avocado. I don't know if it's here. I have the garlic, I need to plant it. And she brought me some avocado, but I don't see it here. Maybe she put it somewhere else. But it's like you do something, you tend to something, and then you see that it begins to unfold. With growing things, I had a lot of issue. I grew seeds, and then they died. And then I grew flowers, and then they died. And it was such tremendous amount of grief. But then when I learned about these half moons, and now it's December, but it's like it's almost summer outside. They don't make it rain. When they know they can. So, yeah. I have actually tried to make a scrub. And I did it with the combination of sugar, but it was white unprocessed sugar. It was white processed sugar, so I think it's not such a good decision. So I'm gonna put it on my feet, not my feet because I don't want it to touch anywhere, but like next to any fungal thingies, but definitely on my skin, and it feels so good. It has good amount of beeswax in it. And I talked about honey and how to make for the beeswax. That there are ways to do that are actually not bad for the bees. I know it's like their housing, but it's also, there are ways to do that where you save the queen. So it's like, yeah, you interfere, but you actually interfere in a way that is also benefic. And you also make sure there are going to be enough plants for the bees, so you contribute your ecosystem by the bees might need to to roam around more, but they will also be in around flowers a lot, and you grow enough flowers for them, which is also supportive of ecosystem. I don't know enough about it to know more accurately how to do it correctly, but when I will let you know. I really feel the smoothness of this cream. It's very, very smooth. And again, I put one thing, I put actually one beeswax that I melted with some oil and some rose and elemi, and I felt it's very condensed, so much so that I can dilute it more. And then that cream came about so smooth. And I put another blend of supposedly cream, but it wasn't really creamy, and now it's way more creamy. The cream is creaming. So practice is so important when you make like these natural butters and stuff. But also you might be listening to me, it's like, the fuck, where do you have the money for do that, to do that, to do that? Well, it piles around, okay? And that would mean that sometimes when I would have like food from the environmental fridge or something, then I could buy more and tend to my nervous system, because this is, like I said, it's not just pills like Lorivan and stuff like that. It's not good because it makes you addicted, and it doesn't actually help on the long run. While the essential oils, they do a change from the core, and then you begin to change things about your life and life path. It's not, this is the difference. There are approaches of rehabilitation that are to readapt you. Now, definitely, if you see something from the course, something happened, it means that both within and without need to change. So let's say something happened in my housing. I know that I make salves all day, and I need that kitchen to be looking nice and to be bigger so I can clean it well. Now, because the place is so beautiful, I felt, well, what could I ask for more? But I know that I'm messing around with this kitchen a lot, and I need a good kitchen, right? But I was also too exhausted, too tired to look for things. And also for the yard. The yard, yes, it is nice, but I know that to grow a forest, I'm going to need a way bigger plot of land. I saw a person who bought giant acres in Texas, a most isolated place, and he turns that place into a forest. He called it desert forest, which is very weird to me, but it's basically he forestifying the desert. And I'm not saying I'm necessarily going to do something this big, but it definitely means that I may have been way too constricting myself, which invited in energies that are invasive, that are contracting, that are not really what my energy is, okay? And I was so exhausted of tending to things, and whenever I tried, there was violence against me. But if every response to this is, hey, I actually need bigger space, hey, I actually need more, and what I need less of is anything that constricts my energy, even for growing, you think about how will I tend to like the garden and stuff. So I learned about the half moons, which is basically building a forest, and when you do that, you don't even need to water the place. And it's also good for the ecosystem, for the climate. And that would mean that I would do it, during the half moons, and I would have a lot of time to rest. And that is rehabilitation. You see, what you think is laziness or not adaptive to the system is actually somebody came to bring here something so much bigger, so much better for everyone. And everybody that tries to constrict that, because some of archaic notions of dumbfuckery, they're hurting themselves. You see, we're a great part of nature, and we revive nature. That's not what we taught. We're taught to think about, to watch for our farts, and to think that everything we touch is something that harms nature. No, it's not. We are not a harm to nature. What is important, because the people who grew up tortured and torturing, they don't feel that because they didn't grow up that way. It's also important to set a firm boundary and not to catch on that malefic behavior, but on the other hand, not to vilify and just say, okay, this is my boundary, this is how I do things. If you want to try to do things in a different way, that's okay. That should not be obstructing my well-being. Now, if you think you're going to grow on enslaving me, that's not a good idea. And you see, entire nature makes it for not a good idea. But we also have to look within. What changes do we need to create? If I take a look at my garden, I have been changing and transforming things so many times before I learned about the half moons, which is basically building soil naturally, just to create the shapes. You don't even have to plant anything. Eventually, they will have to drop some rain. And those shapes, they maintain the rain better. And they won't be able to hold the rain back for all that long without it backfiring like the flood. And then if there is a flood and these structures hold, that is going to go deep into the soil, and we're going to have a lush forest. So anyway, I do something that's meaningful, that's yielding. And when I have a hardship, I ask for the soil, for the half moons to help me as well, because it's a nervous system. One of the things that are important for you to understand is that you can call it divine being, you are worthy of a good life and dignity and all good things. If you don't believe that, you're going to be a problem to society around you. Okay, when I had even unawareness that I am entitled to better, then I didn't set boundaries with certain people. And I didn't even know that I'm entitled to set these boundaries. And that bothered these people, and they bothered me, and my relationships were toxic. And then what happens when your relationship toxic, then you try toxins to improve your nervous system instead of trying good things. I had a conversation with the business owner. She is a aromatherapist, she is a reflexologist, and she grows things, and she has a business with cheese that is vegan, and it looks like very, very delicious cheese. And she is working so hard. And whenever she has to tend to her business, there's just so many things to do with the government, with the bureaucracy, that is making it so challenging. And I thought how the model of the way we do business needs to change and adapt itself to healthy nervous system. Look what interferences with my voice as I say it. It's nothing, because I have honey with me. And let me pick up a spoon and take some honey. Because some people can't stand for small businesses to have model of businesses Change is adaptable to running a business smoothly, effortlessly. To make money for something that's not human trafficking. So we're gonna speak double times. Eucalyptus and honey. This is special honey. If you ever go to Azrieli, and you know that Azrieli group need to change some stuff with ritual views, but there is Ya'arat Dvash is Meshek Dvorim Shachar. It's Shachar, and this was made from flowers, just flowers in the Carmel. And they put it with the honeycomb. This is so tasty, so healthy. And again, I prefer to eat honey and then to plant the flowers and then to savor the queen, so they wouldn't all kill her in the end, rather than to say, oh, I'm vegan, I don't eat honey, it is cruel. It's my opinion, you can have another opinion. And to buy directly from people who sell this is so tasty, and it's actually not too expensive relative to the honey prices or relative to Israeli prices. So you see, I might not have money for food, but if I buy honey, then I get with the vitamins, and I took it with a drop of eucalyptus. So again, space, inner space, honey, good for the throat, change. Nobody takes my voice, okay? Nobody takes my space. Nobody takes my ability to make income, good income, okay? Even if somebody betrayed or harmed me, I'm like, hey, if they correct that, then yeah, people are sometimes they make mistakes or were targeted, but hey, let's build yourself up instead of trying to put down others. So, really, really love this eucalyptus. And it's such a good thing to engage with the essential oils for me, and to support distilleries that are growing it themselves. So to support people, but also it is important to manifest land. I remembered I wanted to grow roses, and apparently roses, Damascus rose, it grows in the mountains. It has to be above a certain level. So I might need to move to an area that is higher in the mountains, so I can grow Damascus rose. I know it used to grow in Bulgaria. I don't know why, but this bottle I bought is from Turkey. But now they have a femicide in Turkey. So let's give some blessings to, whenever I use anything with rose oil, let's give some blessings to the women in Turkey, and for a changing regime in Turkey. I know Geert Wilders had a lot of high hopes when that the current regime will drop, but I don't know what's going on there. And it's also difficult for people in Syria, because a lot of the people in Syria are Armenian, and this is the major minorities that would need to escape the land, and they would need a safe place. So let's bless for Turkey to become civil, okay, for the women, because it's such a beautiful plot of land. I've never been there, because it was never that safe for women alone. And I remember when my colleague Victor, I think he had a seminar there, and he just looked at the pictures and it was like, oh my God, this place is so beautiful. But all this beauty, when you do femicide and you do infanticide, it becomes a desert. And that is something that's very, very bad for the people of Turkey. So hold the people of Turkey and the women of Turkey and the people that treat the women well, and treat the men well and children well. So hold them and have a safe place for them in the heart, because this is so important. And I think we're gonna need also more places to grow Damascus rose. But I need to know more about this, because I'm tending to the moons, to the half moons, and there's something that needs to be special about the soil with roses. I began to try and grow a little bit of roses, not Damascus, but then it became it's just like one time and another time. Rose is something that needs a lot of tending to, a lot of care, and it's something that teaches us as well to care for ourselves and to not. It's very Venusian in the sense that you are deserving of all that much love and care. You are deserving tending to. You're not too sensitive. You're not too much. Okay. The good conditions for to grow roses, that they grow in the mountains, is good for humanity to live there. Whether it's a risk of flood or anything like that, and it's also for to use the rose oil, reminding you, regardless of your gender, that you are deserving of more. Okay, you're deserving of the all good things in life, and nobody has the right to tell you otherwise. Under no circumstances. In Norwegian, they have people that murdered, and they teach them important classes and education so that they can integrate in society. And they don't have to commit crime, because for other times it would be either to be trafficked or to murder for money. And again, I'm not saying that there are not other causes for this and so on, but reintegrating into society is something that takes a lot, because society has to change. And this is Aquarius. Aquarius reminds us that, hey, those royalties are stagnant and they need to either decentralize, be more accustomed to the people, or completely change. During COVID, we had a parliament member that said to close the windows in the buses, or to close the air conditioning in the buses that are between one city and another city. That parliament member was not riding buses, so they didn't know that was stifling people, because you didn't have ability to open the window. It took a lot to explain that person that it's impossible to enforce that in COVID. I missed a class of aromatherapy because of this, by the way. And let's wait a second. I'll be right back. Oh yeah. So you see, when you use the oils, first of all, you want to be drinking a lot, which is a good time to tend to the water and invite in the fresh waters. Fresh water, what is fresh water? Is a willing consent. Not the fake of, not the image of, not the hypnosis of, not the programming of, the real deal. And its entire environment that needs to change, for there will be more fresh waters. It's not for nothing that in Africa they used to worship this, okay? They used to worship this. But also, semen, for good semen, you also need, right, good conditions. You need nourishing food, natural, organic food. For people want to taste it, right? So people are not, ugh. It's not just to change your nutrition. When Uranus was in Aries, we were changing our nutrition, changing our ways. But it's also to basically, what are the conditions that need to be to have good food? For the agriculture, put some magnesium on. Another nervous system supporter. So you see, just by tending to my toenail fungi, what's stuck in me, and to remove that, I'm already tending to so many things. Okay? Let's talk about the type of relations where you have a mixture of rejection and attraction. okay? You want to pay attention, what is rejection? What are you rejecting and what are you attracting? Because essentially a healthy connection, it's the mixture of rejection and attraction is running so smooth that overall it feels like deep attraction. And even if something you like less or something like that, you're okay with that. Why is it not so in many relations right now? So astrologically, we call it hard aspect between Pluto-Venus or Uranus-Venus. So you can tend to it astrologically, but let's say you are in such astrological connection. For example, I can be very attracted to a man, can be very attractive, but if I see he works for the darkness, and I mean works for the darkness, it does corrupt the things in the sense that harm the fresh water, then it's going to be like, hey, I have sides where I'm so attracted, but then that thing comes up. And I'm not into that. It doesn't run smoothly for me. So you want to ask yourself, what, get to the essence of desire. What are you really attracted to? And if your attraction has a fear in it, you think about love and attraction. Sometimes people are like, I'm fearing that and I'm attracted to that. And I'm like, okay, fear facing is lovely. But overall, you should not be in a trauma bond. And so I'm recording, not now. There's also the essence of to be who you are. But she reminded me something of when I was talking about Sol Pluto. I have a hard aspect with my parent with Sol Pluto, or even Pluto Mars. So you might see that, and we're both learning to become aware of that. With Sol, it's about being who you are. But now let's go to my pinky. And immediately when I hold the pinkies of my feet, I have my back straightening up on my shoulders. So that's the thing. There is some mindset you want to keep in mind, okay? Think about, I'm here to stay. That thing called me, with all that I need, with all the nourishment that I need, with all the environment that I need, is not going to go away. If you're invested in me being smaller, less confident, not asking too much for myself, not needing too much, that is something I would go short on. Like, you're invested in something that, first of all, is not you, is not your power, and it's basically you're disempowering yourself. And there's just not a way to go, and also it's not going to happen. I'll tell you even more. There were times I was thinking, why am I alive? I can do nothing but be me, tend to myself, shine even brighter, speak even louder, grow even bigger, okay? What is my business or my entrepreneurship or whatnot? And if I would feel helpless, then eventually what would happen is I would do a move that is so gigantic. There's the opposite of what anybody thought, including me. So much better road to invest is, yes, not to try to make a me or others small, but to shine the light on you and how can you shine brighter and so on. And when people are doing that, I think it's very effective, and you see that they begin to transform, their life begin to transform, they begin to be overall happier. And I remember when I was a young girl and I was seeing a girl that was twice shorter than me. Everybody were watching her because she was an athlete, and I was just like not standing with everybody, but I went to the side and I began to work on my own athletics. I was fiercely jealous of all the attention that she got. But not only that, I was jealous of how comfortable she felt with her body, because when you do athletics, you feel so good with your body. You feel your body is so good feeling. And I concentrated on that so much so. In high school, I would do filmmaking for dancing class. And one of the dancers, she was mixed, half black, half white, and she was very, very tall. And she said that in the beginning, they didn't want to put her in the dance class and in high school, okay? It's not just the classes, it's to major in that. And she invested so much that she became one of the shining stars. And she was taller than me. And so what I learned from this is that I was naturally doing the right thing. It's like if I felt really jealous of somebody and I wanted to do that, so I'll just begin to act on this. And then I began to grow better in my own body. So I'm not as flexible as that young girl who practiced in Wingate will ever be. I will never be that. But I did enjoy working on my body. And then it was more flexibility, so much so that I have a little bit excess flexibility that I'm working on. I enjoyed the feel in my body. And then eventually I would get attention, but it was so much so that sometimes attention was not desired. Because when I work on my body, people get, I'm sorry, horny. But for me, it's not necessarily a sensual thing. It's just like to feel my body. To get sensual is something I need sacred space for. And that can't be with exploitation in the world. That can't be with exploitive governments. That can't be with global enslavement of people. Okay, there's so weird things that we're all interconnected in that way. So when people go to the essence of desire, they see that they adapt themselves, and we adapt ourselves to the surrounding that we are good living at. So if, for example, this was difficult for me or challenging for me to think about, I don't know, acres of land, because it seems like something greedy. But if those acres and acres of land are something that I turn into a forest and are cabins within the trees, I liked it. There was some person in Netherlands that they were building the house with the trees. It's not cutting the trees, but building around the trees. And I don't know how it works with like insects and stuff, I have to admit. But that's something so curious. And that's something that's like, well, that supposed greed is actually doing something gigantically benefic in the world. So if I would have misconceptions, I know Finnish culture, I met when I was in Amsterdam. I was sneaking in the train, and there were two Finnish girls that were helping me to sneak in the train, because I snuck in between them and I didn't have a ticket. And we had a conversation, and I was half Israeli, half Dutch, right? So they were very impressed because Israel is a high-tech nation, and we have less constraints on doing something that is our own. It's not all across the board in society, but the notion that you would just go and do your own thing is sometimes even expected. You have a startup, and then some people sell the startup. You sometimes even expected that you're going to do your own thing. And I've even had that with certain bosses. Okay, I was working in a place that was also holding place for children that were in danger. And some of them, the boss said that they needed the discipline. I don't know if this was true. I think the children at risk sometimes need more flexible place than actually the other way around. But each person has their needs tailored to them. And when I told him that I'm moving for a place that was better, I also had a colleague, she was Sagittarius, and she was, come on, what are you doing in this place? You need to be in a bigger place, a better place. And she was so pushing me to look for a better position. And I did that, and I told her, my boss, he says, I'm so happy for you. And it was very difficult boss for me, because he was this Virgo that is so strict, and I totally am not. This is like, that could kill me. And then it was surprising for me to see how he was genuinely happy for me that I'm moving to a bigger, that I'm doing something with my life and progressing. So that was a value that he could connect with. And we separated very amicably because of that. Well, before that, I wasn't hating on him, but I felt so constricted there that I could barely breathe, and he was making me sick already. So I just think about that as I'm holding my, toenail pinkies. And you want to think about how the growth in your life, what it triggers the people that, and sometimes those people are triggered and they're going to go through transformation. They're going to say, you know what, I'm thankful that I ran into you in my life, because you weren't giving up on yourself, and you weren't succumbing to making yourself small. You weren't playing with, or people will say, when I was a player, you weren't taking that bait, okay? And the thing is that sometimes people are going to be like that. Sometimes people are just going to be haters, and it's like, okay, fine. I have a right to be anyway. And that is just a part of the processes that we go through. And it's also good to look into ourselves, because in the place where we are limiting ourselves, or we keep it, or we're playing small, then when somebody's going to play big, we're going to look at them, give them the eye, because we basically have something in us that is not developing. And I go from this pinky that is really aligning my spine, and I hold that and I go for the next toe. And this is a relational toe. And so the next, immediately I feel my spine aligning and my shoulders aligning even more. That is so good. And as I say that, I remember non-monogamy. And in non-monogamy, we have this notion where if, let's say, we feel jealous, we try to see what is it in us that we need to develop. So sometimes it can be, oh, that girl has completely different skin color than me, and so on. And that's just exotic. Like, I would never have her type of beauty. She would never have my type of beauty. It doesn't mean that I cannot accentuate on my own unique beauty and tend to that. As I just began to tend to that, I saw how MK Ultra penetrated the makeup market, and I'm now tending to that as well on a wide scale level, and that would necessitate that I will make my own makeup products. I'm lazy right now, but it's not like I didn't see it coming. And anyway, because I like to use essential oils and stuff like that, a lot of the makeup products, it's just like there's such a blue ocean to have makeup that's compatible with us aromatherapy people. There is an Israeli company that began to do that. I haven't used their product. I need to learn more about this. And that reminds me that I didn't have a makeup table. I didn't have a place where there's good lighting, and I need to have a makeup table, because that would make it so much more feasible for me to sit there, looking at myself with good lighting, get comfy, and to play like you paint with makeup. It's the environment that have been keeping me from even nurturing myself in that way. And this is a good time to talk about schedule, because you think that what I'm doing right now, we have an hour and 20 minutes into it. I never dedicated that much time for myself when I open my day. Okay? It's also the setting. I grew up to 9 a.m. You would be ready. Up and running. Saturday, not Saturday, ready, up and running. But it didn't leave too much time to take the time for me. And while I'm very excited about the fact that I got to travel all of Europe around with my family, and I got to do things in my life, and I got to be a good student, and I got to do things I was self-taught. I was never waiting for other people to teach me. I also remember the need to balance this with a routine where I take more time for myself. It cannot be that I don't have at least 3-4 hours for myself in the morning. And that the fact that I didn't have that pushed me away from anything to do with schedule. Because schedule immediately meant me not having time for me. Whereas the whole point of a schedule is to schedule time for me. Even when I was doing filmmaking, okay, when I was doing filmmaking, I was both the director and the person. Like, I didn't need people to remind me the time, because I would make things in even less the time. Now, it's not a bad attribute. There was a time where my family thought to send me to do modeling. Thanks God it didn't happen, but and I wasn't acting. Thanks God that didn't happen as well, because this MK Ultra. But the thing is that in modeling you have to change your clothes very, very quickly. And I began to practice that. So I would change my clothes very, very quickly, and my mom began to design clothes. So that became like a little burden to me, but it was also, I learned to get ready very quickly. Even when I was at the shelter in Netherlands, I asked for that thing that you remove the hairs in your brows, and she gave me that gladly. And then I was just 5 seconds, I was done with my brows, and she was like looking at me like, what the fuck did I just see? Okay? She was looking at me like shocked. And she was looking at me, she was looking at my brows, and my brows were done. I can't say that they were perfectly done, but it was like, why am I running the marathon? What am I in a hurry for? And if I needed to run a marathon, I couldn't, because my heart won't sustain it, because I don't rest enough. So all these thoughts, as I'm going between like my pinky and my relational, and thinking about these things and how some things were excessively accentuated in my life, but taking the time is really, really important. Also, when it came to study, I was a quick learner, okay? But taking the time with things is both to enjoy them, and then you can take it on the long run, and is also, hey, our skin needs time. Saturn, skin, time, but also Mercury, which is to try several things, divergence and so on. And also our bones, okay? If I want to right now realign the toe structures, now I'm 40, so I would keep myself in whichever, Nikes or Adidas, or I didn't look at the brand, because it was like, hey, it's a sports, the function of the shoe was more important, right? I need that shoe to enable me to run. I need that shoe to enable me to walk long distances. I need that shoe to function for me, or I need a closed shoe for work. And I wouldn't take the time. So now I'm recorrecting my toe structure and realigning my toes. I'm so glad Jupiter Taurus did such a great job with the awareness to that. Feet on the ground and so on. And also Jupiter Aquarius. Jupiter Aquarius, to pay attention to our feet, our posture. Hey, that hallux valgus is not just about putting some metal in your, in your bones, but it is about really taking the time to your feet. And feet, crown, okay? Crown, I don't mean like the royal crown, but actually the sense that we are, the interconnectedness. Stepping on soil, I notice the more I step on soil, the more I go on air. Okay? This is so very important. So the above and below, okay, are those things that are a part of having happy, thriving life. And when there are groups in society that are not having that, you see that tending to our own body assists in that, because you become aware. Or even I was talking about olive oil and Palestinian oil, and then I found Druzy olive oil, okay, which is also Palestinian. Talking about honey, and suddenly the honey got improved. So even though I don't have, but all the things, I do have quality things in my life, and I'm more aware of the abundance in my life. And that increases, okay, more abundance. Oh yeah. And so you see that this is quite anti the agenda. Now we get to the just do it finger, the fire one. And this is the middle one, and I need to make sure I align them correctly, and just see how much time I supposedly need to spend on realigning the toe structure that 40 years went crooked. This is societal structures, darlings. And this is something that you want to do. Because when you tend to that, you see things. If I take a look at reflexologists, they saw the 2030 coming way before me. Way before me. Okay? And this is what happens, okay? When we tend to things, the fire element is taking action. So what is condensed in our ability to take action, to stand up for ourselves, the fire element? Fire needs air. So think about the things that are made to make the air pollution, the things that they spray in the sky. It affects the soil as well. It's all the things they don't want us to speak about. But you see, the more they don't want us to speak about, we have to speak about it twice as much and take twice the time. Because if I was growing up to a society that had orders like the Templars, and I couldn't stand in those orders physically, so I learned, and even I had an ingrown nail. When I had a little surgery, and the doctor said something that was very embarrassing. You really have to clean your feet. Okay, I was a teenager. So I learned to walk maybe with more open shoes and tend to the shoes. And shoes is very expensive. And so it brings in also, it's like, hey, to spend on myself that much, I wasn't used to that. Oh my God, I need that much. It can terrify the person. Oh my God, I need that much. You think about China, where the concept of freedom is to be happy with what you have. But it's incompatible with Chinese medicine, because to be happy in what you have is a start point that you grow a seed to have. And it's important for entire community. If you think, oh my God, I need that much, instead of, I'm so happy that I'm aware of this now, it means that I'm creating this in my life. It means that this is a blue ocean and venues for business and enterprises. Because many people need that, like I need that. And the more people aware, yeah, we need more in our lives and a life of better, that I have a venue for business, but it's not just a venue for business. It's important to combine a work and rest. And this is also blue ocean, because nearly no business model works like this today. Young Chinese, they opened youth centers that is retreat, where they go and they have a good rest work balance, and they retire there. And this is a business. And you go there, you prepare your own meals as well. It's like slow living, okay? So you want to think about, let's say, people that are in poverty or homeless. It is not because you spent too much or you make a bad money decisions. If you made the bad money decisions, it's because you didn't spend on yourself enough. You didn't buy good quality products enough. You didn't allow yourself to invest on studying something that you really enjoy, or to tend to unionize and change structure in your government that allows you to open businesses, private sector, without too many employees, and still have global reach. This is a time, oh, I see I had lost a little bit sensation in my right feet. So let's bring the sensation back to my right feet. Okay. And I do a little scratching. And I even take for the sponge and I move the blood. Now let's ask, what happens here? What do I need to know? What is more to tend to where I lost touch with this feet? What will help me? And you see, as I'm regaining the blood flow in my feet, exercise, okay? I need to exercise my toes more, exercise more, which means there's more slots in my schedule that I need to recount, okay? It means that I need a lot more time for myself to recover, and I need to think about it, to budget that, and to budget that in the sense that to know I'm deserving of that. Nobody can tell me that they are rehabilitation if they don't give me enough to rehabilitate. They can give some, and then I can work with this, of course, but it's also important to understand that it's not against our society to rehabilitate, to rest. It's actually from Eastern cultures that I know about this when I was very young, because the Western culture is all about work, Arbeit macht frei, and then people get stressed and get neurological diseases, heart diseases, and our products are not good. And so when we rest, we actually have better and we more connection with nature, better ability to concentrate, okay? So we combine the East and West, and we combine the work and rest. East is also means of production. So think about owning the means of production. When you have a distillery yourself, you can make your own essential oil and enjoy the process from the growing to making the oil. We have with the crystal community very big problem. We don't have all connections to all the chain of production. And then we don't know where are the miners, where are miners doing mining, okay? And that means that the children are enslaved, there is sex trafficking, there is this, there is that, and we are not in contact with them. So our industry is in a big problem because there's such a huge parts of our industry are not getting reach there, and maybe working on the feet, setting intention there, work on the blood flow, on the circulation, and sending energy, okay, to all those miners, to those children, to the spaces, the caves, children in caves, people underground, okay? I feel good support to my neck when I do that. Yes, it's like something that the deprogram interfered in the programming of something. You feel it in the brain, and you feel a little, okay, going around my ear. You know, when people are underground or above ground, the pressure in the ear changes. And I line my neck a little bit. Just think how much time we need to tend to ourselves each day, each and every one of us. And in Eastern culture, it's very obvious because you have routines where you make exercise, and everybody does that in the street, and that is something, you know, you open your day like this and you're a happier person, a more satisfied person. You open the day and you look at the sunrise, and you connect with nature, and you connect with people because they do that in groups as well, okay? But you can also do that alone. One of the things that I got from Europe or Northern Europe is the ability to be alone as well. The solitary person. Even our Prime Minister, Mark Rutte, was known to be a man living alone in an apartment in The Hague. And he said the last taboo in Netherlands was to live alone. And this is something that I find so important, because if you think about all the complaints we have to politicians, it has to do with children having a childhood, when people not marrying by force, even in terms of Western society, okay? So nobody binds you, but the cult kind of does. And if a person have the right to say, so people say, oh, they're sleeping with children, that this, that. Well, I'm sorry, the people that have children that are not less incestual, that's something we need to tend to all across the board. For example, the fact that they were also in these death camps. But you think about the notion of to have your own space, your solitary space to retreat to, and how that makes of you a better person. I think even when, for example, I left a 10-year-old friendship, before I left, I prescribed to my friend, I was doing an apprenticeship in aromatherapy, and I prescribed to him, you must travel 1 day a week at least. And he was doing it like pilgrimage, and he was listening to me, and he noticed when he was traveling, okay, Aquarius, Sun, and Saturn, when he was traveling, he felt better, he became a better person. When he didn't have time to travel, it was impossible to live around. He became more sensitive to energies and not his own, more challenges. Okay, so the freedom of movement, okay? And that was so significant. And as I'm doing that, I'm brushing my feet, and I'm going up for okay, going up my leg. And that is something that actually I got from my mom. But we forgot to do that with the time and the exhaustion and the perpetual trauma that they want to put people in. It looks like we forgot that. And this is actually malefic, okay? Something that doesn't need to happen. We actually need to have time. I also think about recording these videos and how it would be good to have like a place where I can sit next to my computer and edit. And this entire video I could make with photos and upload and dedicate more time to my art, okay? And have the time to do that. Because you see, now that I dedicate this time to myself, it's not that the time is wasted, that we can recycle this content and we can add photos and we can add things, and this time can become a series and this time can become edited, okay? It's not time lost. It's when you dedicate the time to yourself that now we have ideas and you can follow them through. I think about the need to make money from our content and how important we need platforms that allow it, we need economy that allow it, and we need schedule, society that allows it. Because who will pay for my content if they don't have time to watch it, time to apply it on themselves and create more content themselves that is theirs, okay? In a similar process, if you have toenail fungi, maybe you need to do that, okay? All my Scorpio Pluto generation, where you at, okay? So something that, and this is the blood flow. So you see what that feet was signaling to me? I lost sensation in my right feet. Oh, I need to turn to myself, to my marketing abilities, to my creative ability, my content creating abilities. All the things that don't show because I don't take enough time for myself. Because I don't dedicate. And you see, I have a thought process here. I love sharing thought processes with you. You see me doing that in my entire, what? Time. A lot of my videos is about sharing the thought process, showing the process. And I know when people look at guides, how to do, for example, holistic medicine yourself, and this is knowledge from experience here. But this is a good example of how you can do it yourself. You can take of what, like I do, and begin to record yourself, okay? And really see what comes up in you when you do that, when you do this practice. Because when I studied holistic medicine, there was a big problem. When will my patient begin to apply that? And we had to find sneaky ways so they can fit it into their schedule. Now I go to the other feet and it's so pleasant. It's so much so that my mom brought me waffles, chocolate waffles, and I don't even think to taste them right now. Okay, they can go bad as far as I'm concerned. I'm just going to bring me some water. And while I brought me some water, this is a great time to think about interferences in your life, and time is such a good discussion for that. Who interferes in your time? Sometimes it can be even like a parent that's like, come on, let's move. Okay, I moved in the morning, we did what we went and we had nice time, and now I'm taking the time for me. So I'm not compromising anything. And whatever you think you might lose, you see that you're going to lose it anyway. You see, because if I didn't take the time for me, I would be in a place that would later fire me, change the currency, try to put me in human trafficking, sexually harass me. I won't have medication. They would put me in the ghetto, and then they, make medical experiments on you and you burn the body. That's it. That's it. That's what you're afraid to lose. And so whenever there's something that interferes with that, remember that no one has the right to interfere with your time, with being you. If somebody can't stand that, they don't have to stand here, right? You'll never have to cover yourself. I was living in a place where I began this conversation with a lot of orthodoxy, and I went with the dress and so on, and the lady see me, is like, you look so lovely in that dress, okay? Even though it's completely not their dress code, but there was no problem. You see, we could connect with the values of nature, and she taught me about, for example, when you grow a new plant in Judaism, you first donate the first yield, okay? So this grows prosperity, so this is good things to know. And the 7th year, I know that you don't harvest, so you let the soil rest. Now for me, I grow it with the half moons, so it's not industrial, and but this is important to let yourself rest, to let things rest, okay? They also try to keep you from taking the time to you. They don't come with nice motives, right? Yeah, they don't let you be who you are. And one value that I'm glad we have in Netherlands is that you have the right to be who you are. Nobody has any right to take from you the right to be who you are. And being who you are is also action. I have the right to take the time for me. I have the right to take the actions that are good for me. They also try to interfere that, to control your life path. And sometimes you can have that with parents. I have Pluto square Mars with my mom. Okay, it's not necessarily from awareness, but they try to control the direction of your life. No, go here, go there. But you could do it like that. So like, fuck you. Even to your parents. Fuck you. Do you want to lose a child? Do you want me to commit a suicide? Do you want me to be so sick that you cannot even visit me in the hospital because it's claustrophobic? Do you want to lose your daughter? So it is so important for people to have, and later it meets you in relationships. I had so many problems that stemmed from people are not having each other have their own way in life. Hey, I needed things to be done my way. Another person needs things to be done their way. And the crisis is an opportunity, because Pluto is about transforming something in general society. And Mars is action. So there needs to be a place for my course of action and for the other person's course of action as well. And that should be allowed in terms of the real estate Mars, the economy Mars, banking system Mars, the wealth and accumulation of wealth Pluto, the ability to tend to things, even psychological things or psychic things, in one's own way. It is imperative for healing, okay? That the method is adapting itself to the patient, not the other way around. It's in fact the core essence of the therapy. And this has to be not just in words, but also in action. When I came to Itamar Yaron, he asked me what methods were working for you, what this was that. This is professional question. But then he decided to take road that is not what he said. This was exploitation. And it was undercover, so I didn't even understand what's happening. Okay, that can be derived, I don't have chart, but that can be derived from bad Mars-Pluto manifestation. So, antidote, you invite the Mars-Pluto sextile or the Mars-Pluto trine. And you see, sometimes the same problems you have with your parents, you may have in relations, but in relations there's also sexuality, finances, and many things. When there is place for one way, not for another way, you have to ask yourself why. When I started doing water expands upon cooling, and I first learned that the foundation, let's say for Pedra de Fries, they accept only concrete tips. It's okay. But then when I looked at channeling, I realized that there had began to be a problem in the world that instead of using remote viewing, like when I was doing my essay in university, to locate missing people, they began to use it to target people. Okay, now it's no problem if one person wants to tend to cold cases in one way and another in another way, but both ways need to be available. And now you see that exposed a certain problem that is happening in the world right now, but is actually aiming to the same thing that Peter exposed when he tended to the WHO. So this is something where you see how the way exposes things. That way possible, that way not possible. Okay, let's ask a question. It's not about forcing, let's say, Pedra de Fries Foundation to do it in another way. That's not the point. There has to be availability for another way to be done. And if that is not happening, then there is a problem that uncovers something way, way deeper. And thanks to the fact that I did it and I noticed that, I'm more able to explain and stand for my rights, because when I ask, how did my landlord spy on me? He was astral projecting through mirrors, apparently. I'm not joking. It's the craziest things I heard. But the thing is that those methods are used to locate missing people. So it's very easy to explain that, hey, that person was enforcing the tricks that they use, the techniques that they use to locate the missing people and to release hostages in order to target his tenants. Now everybody understands, because the police knows exactly that they used to work with people that do that in order to locate missing people and hostages. And now if it's new police, if the police doesn't know it because they changed the personnel, it's a good question to ask, when did they change the personnel? Where are the other people? Were they assassinated? Were they confiscated? Are they alive? Do they have something to say? Were they silenced? I would say a very good idea would be not to have human trafficking in real estate at all, because that, you know, just the tenant has to tend to something. If I think about Ruth Shoham, you see, I talk about blood flow, And as I work on my blood flow, rejuvenate my Mars blood way, strategy, technique. Ruth Shaw was a single mom that had her children abused. She was raped by her husband, and the children were raped as well. And they were taken for satanic abuse. She took the children out of her dad. 1 year later, the children confiscated, brought to their abusive dad for ritual abuse. She sent 7 times over to psychiatrists. People say she's fine, okay? She didn't need like funding for study or something like that, so she never had history with them. So that's the difference. I took funding for study, otherwise I would have nothing to do with them either. I never got something useful other than the things that are not psychiatry. And initially I had a mental crisis because I wasn't studying, I wasn't doing something important with my life, I wasn't moving on, and I became crazy. It makes you crazy. That's mental crisis, right? It is not pretending, you genuinely become crazy. So this is a good time to put some more salve and ask to preserve and create a good nervous system and good support for the nervous system, environment that supports the nervous system, housing, soil, community, sovereignty. Okay, interfaces for businesses, schedules that supports the nervous system, taking time for myself, spaces where I can do what I came here to do benefically. Remember that we are deserving of all of these good things, especially right now, because the people that make the wars, they make money from it, they make resources from it. Yeah, we should not be losing from wars, and we should not be giving them chance to put us in all kinds of concentration camps and then make money and say, oh, we need to tighten up the belt because it's war. No, you don't tighten up the belt, you enslave people and you make war. So we make it less affordable for you to make unnecessary wars. It's not a bad thing, but maybe then you will lose some addictions in your life as a result of that. Okay, so you see, sexpionage is such a big problem in society. I was just writing the mayor, and I know that people said about him that he goes to whores. But I wrote to him, you see, there's a problem with so-and-so with the real estate. And I said to him, you see, what problem with human trade is that is used for espionage. And this is used to extort people and then even politically assassinate them. So now that he connects the dots, there's a question a person asks themselves, how can I have good sex without money changing hands or without running into sexpionage? Well, you're gonna have to learn some tricks, and it begins with self-pleasure. You're gonna have to learn how to have a sex with willing consent, okay? Nobody teaches that. But for this, it's not just fault of one person, but all people, they learn for how to tend to their own pleasure. And even, one trick that people can do is to turn off external stimuli. This would both make you be aware when you are targeted. Because sometimes you want to touch yourself, but you feel other entities. And they decide for you which person you will have sex with, which this, which that, even when you'll be having lover. So, to begin to return to your body and to use whether oils or salves on all these natural things, first of all, now you know you need something, you need it for your nervous system. You just say, I have to clear my nervous system to function well and so on. It's very easy. They let you have sex with sometimes children for that, right? So that budget can be allocated differently. And a person can return to their own body. Because essence of desire is not for the outside always. Or the visual or this or that. And that can, depending on the person, expose you to what's going on inside. See, if I try to touch myself and I feel these entities or this or this that, and many people feel that right now, then I know I need to tend to that. I say, what is this damn fuckery? This is spiritual warfare. I'm like, that's what it means? Okay. Why they do that? Because they want to enslave a people. Oh. This is very weird. It actually makes me do double dime things for me. Because I have to be even more concentrated. Not in concentrated camp, but in my taking the time, taking the space for me, paying attention that it's me and my body. I cannot just do whatever I did. So this becomes opportunity to change, to tend to things. Because you try different things to make it stop. Then you say, maybe it's connected to that person, maybe it's connected to that person. And here we are at 2 hours. Now I want to think that every day, if you have like Donald Fanger, something stuck in the system for so long, and I will use even more eucalyptus. Or I'll go with the recycled blend. Very interesting. A lot of fresh stuff in it. And pamper my nails. Now, you also want to have the ability to remove for the excess skin or, okay, under the nails. I'm going to tend to that. But you see, first of all, I nourish. I know some people do that, and then don't worry, because you're going to have another layer. Layering up when it comes to oil can be fantastic, just the way you do makeup, right? And we live in society where, yeah, that would be a good time to begin. Oh, it smells so good. So many things smell so good. I love that. And I take my Q10 coenzyme. This is good when I had the fatigue after trauma. Then I took that as well. And you see there are beings in the room that are upset. Well, if you are upset, you can go to another room. Okay, but we keep good company here. Those that are upset, they can go elsewhere. Whether in spirit, in matter. Everybody deserves their sacred space. Oh, and I found out the Moon Taurus oil that I made. Yeah, let's put some bank statements. Okay. Do some things. And be wary, okay, when people come to interfere in your process, okay, set a boundary there. You'll get to it in your own time. And this is also to remember, you know how to do things, okay? When you need your help, you can ask for help and help will arrive. But in general, you know how to do things. You learn yourself, you decide for yourself what you use, when you use it, when you layer up. Okay, nobody can begin to control your routine. Now, for some people, that be especially triggering because they were used to having their routine very controlled. I'm not talking about volitionally. For some people, volitionally, and it's okay if you need a certain type of, more fixed, or that's okay that you plan your day. But also keep time to tend to your nervous system. And I'm beginning to tend to the skin around the nails. And those points are really fascinating. For some people, you want to do it off camera because you might be vocal, okay? And sometimes some things needs to be released. The in-breath. Paying attention to what happens in your body. Work across the points because it's all about blood flow, energy flow, and re-owning your nervous system, your body, your place in your body, okay? The more they make a spiritual war, or whatever they call it, the more we are called to take a more time to our own nervous system and places and points we've neglected in our bodies, okay? So if I think to myself, I tried, for example, to do things myself, and then I paid a manicure and I saw MK Ultra everywhere. And now I'm kind of returning to do things myself. But also, you see, I do something with that. And so this changes up my routine as well. Very, very relaxing. Now you feel with the pinky, I always feel it around the breathing, but also around anus and so on. And Pluto is also the body parts that we don't call in their names. No, they have names. Much better to talk about it than cultures like where in Japan I heard children, they stick up finger up each other's bum hole. This is giving a bomb. Okay, it might seem like a funny thing, but that's something you need to actually look into. Okay. Dogs, they sniff each other's bum hole. So they get to know each other by the scent. But for us, it seems like in Western society, oh, that's crap. Well, to make sure you crap at the right place at the right time, I think the Indians, you shit first, okay, and then you pee. I'd never managed to do that as a Western person. The color, okay, for the tending to the health of our feces, we don't look at the feces, and then as a result, we're not aware of our food. We are ashamed. People in the West still can't separate the muscles of the anus and the muscles of what is the vagina, or okay, whatever you have, and muscle separation. This is a good time to begin to exercise, okay, to separate the pinky and begin to exercise. Regain your own sovereignty, very simply put, in the body by exercising even your toes. You see, it activates all the body. I feel it in the neck, in the butt cheek, which is very funny because I work on the pinky of the right feet and I feel it in the left butt cheek. Okay? Now this is a cute exercise to start your day. When I went to buy my Birkenstocks before the war, the guy there told me that he likes to work with his body and work on separate muscle groups and pay attention to what it activates. So think about our posture, think about how we hold our feet. And I'm just working here with you, okay? It's almost like a play. Gotta get my pinky now. Whenever I do attend to my feet, tremendous changes happen in my life. I wanted to learn a reflexology when I was working in that nowhere to go workplace, and I had this Sagittarian friend who's like, you need to do something with your life and so on. I was at the call center and I was just keeping to tend to my feet all day. I was massaging my feet like a reflexology because I had no money like to go to reflexologist. And I definitely need a free MK Ultra free good one. But I know when I tend to that, something dramatic is shifting in my life path. And naturally, the feet is our steps. I was just going to the supermarket to buy bread. And the lady there had this, in Hebrew we say dolban, is something in the ankle that bothered with her walking in the right feet. And she needed to do MRI and this. And I said, you got to be cautious because sometimes you need to do 180 from what they say. And we talked and I told her, well, pay attention to the steps. Maybe you need to do steps. You need to look at soil and so on. We talked about the fact that this is a city and they want to make it a concentration camp city. And you see how just standing to the feet and doing the very usual activities that I always do, you encounter suddenly another person that's standing to their own feet. And that is, okay, bringing you forward. And this is a good advice, okay? Feet, your steps also connected with your way. Because it's action. So remember, your feet are important, but also allowing place for your way. Your way needs to have a place in your motherland, in your house, in your workplace, in your society, in your community. You see, for example, if I tend to the sexpionage issue, I'm not here to judge what person does for a living or stuff like that. I'm standing to the trafficking here. And if that wouldn't interfere with my way, so much so that I have to tend to that, otherwise I have no place to live, then I probably would be tending to my way, right? So my way needs to have a place, and also for the way each and every individual inside this place needs to have a place. And those are many ways. The wonderful thing about traveling, again, feet associated, is that you run into many ways to do things. For example, Finland has another way to deal with homelessness or to deal with psychosis or psychiatric issues than Netherlands or Israel. And then Israel has another way to deal with entrepreneurship than Finland, okay? Then it's the combination. And when I was studying, even I remember an episode where I talked about Israelis and Palestinians, and I was like, I see the resilience of Palestinians is so much to the extreme that they have soil that is fungal. They grow only one type of trees commercially, whereas the Jews or the Israelis, not just the Jews, okay, it's an Israeli thing. 7th of October hit, everybody was in Thailand. We have a colony in Thailand by now. And then other people came from Europe to fight, okay, to go to Gaza. And so the Jews travel so much and Palestinians, they stick around until the soil is fungal, and it would be much better if, okay, if Palestinians learn to move around a little bit, not only when they are refugees, and Israelis connected with the soil, and bring their diversity, okay, not just its means of exploitation or industrialism. Because where do Israeli travel? To India, to Thailand? Yeah. What's that? Oh, thank you. More food is coming. Thank you. Lovely. But the fact is that Israelis love to be around nature. And I'm not just talking about the groups that travel to the sex work there and so on. I'm talking about the people that really go to like yoga classes, to be at nature. Even if when you think about the smoking or something like that, it's more like to relax, to learn another state of being. Okay, I'm talking about the interesting type of traveling. And then they bring businesses here. They bring new perception, new ways to do things. That you can agree or disagree. I liked it that Indians began to rebel caste society. Simply because it is change. I wonder to see what will be when they begin to do that. So I'm going again to my pinky of the other foot and begin to try and move it a little. And indeed, I feel it in the opposite butt cheek. This is so fun. I did not even know that the muscles work this way, or the nervous system works this way. And to regain access to the nervous system when it comes to moving a muscle is so exciting. I did not have much patience for it when I was young. But when I'm doing something and doing that, now it adds something that enables me to tend to those little muscles. Okay, I like that. Ooh. Oh, this is lovely. Oh, wow. Yeah. Feel it in my entire spine. And this is a twist. It's so healthy for the spine because that's a while since I did that. Oh, God. Wow, I need to rest because my nervous system is like not used to that. I can brush some more. I have a brush that I use for my hair. There's a good brush the crown as well. When you tend to the feet, important to brush your scalp. And I got this thing, it's so.ok. It was one of these months where I was using that and I was like, why am I buying that and not food? Because I knew that that is going to use me for way more days than the next meal. And indeed, okay, talk about food absorption. Sometimes the things you haven't tended to that need to be tended so much that they overwhelm the Maslow pyramid. I did the pyramid upside down when Pluto was in Aquarius, in a Capricorn. And it yielded because I academically understood why I need soil. Okay? and how that correlates with the nervous system. It was such a lovely introduction in the end to Pluto in Aquarius for me, that by the time Pluto hit Aquarius, I was already so equipped to deal with things that on a community level, on a personal level, on a psychic level, nobody could, like, scientifically tackle this without me seeing their gaslight and exposing that. Nobody can tell me that to have soil is being greedy, or that to have a house that have space and environment is compatible with a good lifestyle, okay, is being gold digger. Definitely not when I want people to have separate housing when they're whether single or in relationships. So I tend to things already on a community level and on a nervous system level. And when I need to tend to the ground, okay, to the soil, my academic background and my ability to, understand what it means is way potent than if I would just, have a house and then learn something in university. I'm not saying you cannot go the other way around. Some people went that, and it's fantastic. There are many ways to do things, but this was the way that I went about this. And this is such a great introduction to Aquarius, because now I have a lot for me that the people that have been, let's say, real estate agents, and the people that have been in the field, or investors or business people, okay, they don't have this type of exposure to other fields of studies as I do. Okay, so sometimes they don't even know their rights. They don't even understand that, let's say, housing first could really save the entire real estate. Even when you talk about sales, because the same crookery, and it's not about crooked people. Crookery is a type of circumstances, in as much as it's a type of character. Okay, I'm humbled by the resilience it needs for me to be not crook. Okay, most people wouldn't be doing that what I do. Okay, that and I'm humbled by that. I'm not saying, but at the same time, I fend for myself by any means necessary, right? And it's because I do that this is how I live, for the good and the bad, right? So people are not even aware that housing first, based on a personal, independently of ability to work, is such a good income for them. And it is actually hurting the entire real estate when they do things that can easily, if your estate or your office, let's say we found out that there is a human trafficking and we decide to enforce it, you could lose the license for your entire business. If it's a network of business, for your entire network of businesses, because for sure there are more places in the world. If globally the WHO or the WEF decides to enforce that tomorrow, they will confiscate all of your wealth, but it will just go to human trafficking. Whereas if we, the people, decide to enforce that, you will remain in business and you will grow business that is actually supporting you, and you will also not grow toenail fungi like I did when I didn't tend to business. Okay? You see, I'm learning about myself as well. There are so many opportunities, and Pluto is all about opportunities. Pluto, even when I listen to all these vlogs of like rich people and they're like with the cult and so, but still it's interesting to see what different segments of society have to say. And the notion is that people pay money not for anything more than opportunities. People have connections for opportunities. The wealth is opportunities. And that's very interesting. I have asteroid opportunity next to my natal sun. It is opposite in Saturn. So now that I'm tending to Saturn, I'm tending to my hair actually right now. And rethink about this, and the fact that, it's the old saying of, it's not about just giving fishes to people, and sometimes you need fishes, but it's about learning them how to fish, teaching them how to fish. An opportunity is a lot like teaching you how to fish, or more like when you know how to fish, you have an opportunity. You can go here, you can go there, you can do something. Okay, if I learned, for example, about the half moons, I can go here, I can go there. I can begin to grow things, and that's an opportunity. So of course I'm going to need some stuff for the starter, but the rest is an opportunity. Okay, it's the opportunity to do something with the land. And in crisis Pluto exposes, because it composts things, it basically turns things upside down, okay? And downside up, and upside down, and downside up. And then that basically exposes opportunities. You think about when you're looking at your attic. Having Pluto in my 12th house, okay? Looking at your attic, so sometimes it's a shame. It's like, oh my God, you've been neglecting your feet for so long. Yeah, but it's an opportunity that when I'm beginning to tend to that, there's a hidden wealth. For example, learning that I couldn't stand in the orders of the Templars. And people didn't believe me. So learning about the wisdom of my feet themselves, right? Connecting the fact that my grandmama lost her 2 feet for a job in a textile factory, in a sugar factory. It's basically sweets, it's chocolate. And she had diabetes, and they had to cut her feet. They made the surgery like they do in the heart, they made in the feet. Nituach makafim, I don't know how to say that in English. Okay? And for me, I began to work 4.5 years in McDonald's, and I couldn't work on my feet. I could dance, I could run, not fast, but I could walk, but I couldn't work on my feet, still today. And the working market was not adaptable. And so everybody would think that you're lazy and you don't want a job. Which is, okay, incredibly fitting for these double binding cults. It's a part of their abuse, actually. And it's informed abuse. Your boss may not know that, your colleague may not know that, the families may not know that, the upper rank, they know that. But it's also the fact that sometimes the upper rank are dissociated, because to spread your toes is something that we need to do after lineages that the farmers, they had no problem. But when people began to be landowners, they began to walk with triangular shaped feet, which is pyramidal. And I addressed it in previous season of Do It by Feet. I learned this when Jupiter was in Aries and in Taurus. So you see that in that cycle of the Get Ready With Me now, we begin to understand that while there were landowners and it began to be poppy to not grow food on your soil, okay, to have it decorative only, people lost touch with ground, and eventually they lost touch with the air, because the air is polluted because of this. If you lose touch with ground, you lose touch with air. Okay, you go on air by going to the ground, and for some people it's underground. You talk about caves and the rejuvenation that needs to be there as well, in the sense that, okay, getting people out of the cave. Pluto Aquarius is where what's underground comes to the air. And what kept people underground go 6 feet under. Okay? But in that process, there's a lot of place with Saturn in Pisces for repent, correcting our ways, giving place for other ways and other people. And it's going to be very, very important, right? So with that hair brush, I go over my face as well. And this is my favorite part. I'm not always able to touch my face. But this is so very important. You see, we have this problem about cameras. Starlink replaced the Volt Safer, and we still don't have footage of all the missing people, the hostages, but this used too much to other things that essentially bother with the nervous system. Let's call them the global nervous system, to abort any malefic use of the nervous system to spy, to bother people, to harass people. Okay, for money changing hands in that way, to human traffic, to take photos. Let's call on the entire nervous system to abort these practices, because a nervous system is an open source system. That's what's lovely about Aquarius. And we are, each and every one of us, we're part of that system. Okay, so if you have, for example, slaves, you're gonna grow some really gruesome things between your toes, you know? And your semen not gonna taste lovely. But when you tend to that, you can actually transform yourself, so you don't have to change, you don't have to go to sex espionages to be having, you know, good orgasm, because people don't reject you anymore, because you don't have to work for the light and for the dark. Now, if you've been in society where all the girls are programmed, then they design the world for you. All the boys are programmed. They design the world for you where you thought you have to adapt to society, especially if you're highly mercurial. So you tend to adapt yourself to society very easily. And the good practice for mercurial people is to travel around, okay? For the other polarity is Jupiter. Travel around and see different societies. Now, if you're in a cult, it's very difficult. But then if you somehow listen to this, you've already breached, okay? It's like the cave and going out of the cave. You've already found a little ray of light out of the cave. It tips you, it ticks you, it triggers you, but you know you're here for a reason. And that's what's up. Now is a good time to tend to my hands a little. Some more eucalyptus. Eucalyptus is change. And I talked about how space is important to recover from addictions. Many people have many addictions, right? But addiction doesn't have to be hard drugs. It can be you are fixed in your ways about something. And while every person deserves their own ways, in our own way, there are sets of things that we could do. And it's only for you to decide what it is. They can be more or less benefic, and our ways are also dynamic, right? So it's only for you to decide what you do and how you do, as long as you don't hurt, because it's not colliding with the well-being of another person, and it's not built on slavery. And I'm not talking about people that have kinky relationships, so that's your own, but they need to have the ability to exit that contract at any time. No contract is valid otherwise. Tiny bit heuristics. And if you make an inversion of the signs of heuristics, it will flip back, because then what happens, remember, in the court, Supreme Court in Netherlands, is written in Latin. Where the judiciary decision fails, armed conflict ensues. Now, of course, might is not always right, and to tip the scales, you sometimes need a 50 grams of white. But nature has cycles. And people, when they're marginalized, they go in the ecke, they go in the corners. And what's in the corner, you get what's in the corner. Okay, so there's dust. You clean that dust. What else somebody put into the corner? What's in the margins? And you might find some treasures there, okay? Before I began the garden where I lived, the neighbors, very nice neighbors, but they were throwing some trash in the junkyard. I took what the cartons that they were throwing, and I put some soil in it, and I grew some potatoes. First of all, they stopped throwing things. Secondly, I began to have the right to walk this land. Because I didn't rent it with the yard, okay? But now it's obvious that for the next place, it's got to have a bigger plot of land where I can actually do something useful. Or a plot of land is already naturally growing, so there's some progress to some yield to what I've done, and that is another way in which that can manifest. Because I'm going a certain direction, and that direction needs to yield. Or even if it's a city, it has to have this plot of land where I can grow naturally and wildly, but to preserve the nature of the birds, okay? The nervous system, okay, even if it's of the city. But the people that are like, oh my God, we're trying to enslave people, what are you doing? Look to your nails, look to your toes, align your toes, align your skin. We probably be having, I would not be surprised that, let's say, if I have a toenail fungi in the middle finger of my right foot, you might be having a matching one in the finger of your left foot. And as I tend to myself and you tend to yours, it's very likely that some things are going to change and you might not be replaced with AI as they set it out to be, while telling you you're going to be the next Churchill or something in completely not the same times. It's a mirror or even image of the times. This may have, you see, astrology is such a beauty because it is about chaotic pattern recognition in chaotic system. Now, you could have a Churchill maybe, I don't know, but that is about, we still are in the mirror image. You still have to accommodate for the fact that we are in the age of the French Revolution and the American Revolution, and the government in France fell. So now is a good time to use of what I use on my hair, and then I wash it on my feet, and this is so lovely. This is where I align my neck in the best way. You see, when you do that every day, it's almost 3 hours. I said 4 hours for a reason. You can't expect to have glowy skin without taking the time. I'm gonna tell you even more. Before I began to again put some oil on my skin, on my eyes, I wasn't using any cream, okay? I'm a aromatherapist, I love to make them, but I wasn't like really using them on my eyes. I was tending to my feet more. And the way that they cursed, I woke up with dry eyes. And by the way, I saw another lady on the bus that had problem with her contact lenses, and the eyes were also dry, which was funny. But what I would put, I was to remove that, and I would also put some salves that are magical on, okay, that I set intention into on my eyes to backfire and so on. But then I was like, goddamn, the fact that I need to put some, okay, I need to put some eye cream and tend to myself, and then that is, okay, that helps me glow. So now I tend to my glow more. And I take more time for myself, so there's less place for invasion. Going back to the time of Hitler and why Hitler did not get funding for his art. Because nobody wanted you to see a mother holding a child. He drew Maria and Jesus in a serene environment. It's like it was given Da Vinci, but it didn't go around. Nobody had time for Da Vinci in the Second World War. Nobody likes to hear that because we all want the narrative of the horrid person with the funny face that looked like a satire of himself because he was on amphetamines and God knows what other drug cocktail. Nobody wants to hear that, because the art of framing is more important than to understand that people did not want to fund Hitler because they did not want you to see a beautiful painting of a mother giving, well, the thing about Mariah that she didn't give natural birth to her son, but it's like nobody wanted you to see a mother holding a baby in serenity and a house by the lake, which would be the complete antidote to everything that happened when Uranus is in Beta Persei. Nobody wanted to fund that. Hey, there are some people I know that their book was categorized self-help book, and that book had to do with the relationship between the father and his son, and that father also tended to true crime. Framing. I said what I said. See, when I take a time for myself, it connects. They tried to make Psychic Attack to make it look like somebody that I was viewing was Nazi, and they put it in the astral rape. Now, this is so much so that I don't know who took part in what, but the thing is that in essence, nobody wanted to fund Hitler because Hitler was showing us a picture of good, serene life, mother holding baby, house by the lake, beautiful Taurian color like only a Mars and Sun in Taurus can do. Okay? Oil paintings that take time, 3 weeks to dry. Nobody wanted to fund that. There was enough place. I love surrealistic art. There was enough place for that. Cubism, great, fantastic. There's enough place for that. There's enough funding for that. But those who manage the wealth, they decide what is the spirit of the time because they want to have certain type of people, and they did not want to have a certain type of people that see house by the lake all the time. And even what we call the traditional family values, it was interfered with because they kept checking that you're traditional. Okay, think about the trad wife trend. Nobody really buys into, but they try to keep pushing that. Do you know how to make a trad wife glow? You mean, can you imagine the fact that the woman has hardly any interaction with anybody except for you, and you need to still make her glow? Do you know what the burden is that? You want fresh water, otherwise you will have famine, you will starve. She will poison you because that's all the water that you will have. That's trad wife. I was seeing a picture about short about Finns and how they have vacation. So it was a satirical short that says that they may invite you over for vacation because they want you as a helper to cut the logs of wood and to do the work, and it's a hard work, and then they rest, and this is their vacation. Because it takes something. So there's also a reality check about like the cabin in the woods, and so on. But you also have to think about the fact that there are decisions of what art you will see that are financial and that they serve something. Careful whether the decisions that we want to have not thinking people, and then the schools were not oriented to educate you. Now I love going to school, but I wasn't relying on that for education. But then when you have all the enlightenment is the cult, then there's a lot of inversions around that will be sifted and sorted throughout Pluto Aquarius. that is when we make the blood flow and we remember things. I have Scorpio in the 9th house, so Mars in Scorpio. Then immediately when I talk about the blood, what did I talk about? True crime, Holocaust, and the oil painting, funding of art. That's just me making the blood flow up to my right knee. If you know, you know. You see, when blood circulates, relationships get better as well. Like I said, when I prescribed my ex-bestie a pilgrimage every week, I know what I was talking about. And as I was moving to live alone, I noticed that I also needed a pilgrimage. So that's something I actually did not know about myself, because the pilgrimage was allocated to him and I was working, I don't know, what the fuck was I doing? Sitting with the neighbors or something, and doing aromatherapy. And I could barely walk. That was the most traumatic, because I was so used to walking all day. And then a complete exact polarity, because he was not used to me not being able to walk, and so much so that I could barely walk him to the bus station. And then the pilgrimages, I guess, were allocated to him. And when I moved alone, then I began to do these pilgrimages because I needed that. And there would be crisis in my life with the housing, even if I didn't go to the airport and see. And when there was a crisis, I would sleep at the airport. It kind of replaced the academy for me. I'll definitely be needing to fly more. I just don't know how to do that, and some things need to change in the world. So, yeah. And the ruler of my housing is also in the 9th house, which is traveling as well. So I'm having a house traveling. And to be very honest, before the big crisis with the housing, I needed to get on a plane, but I didn't have the money. And the entire economy needs to change so that I'm included in a way that is healthy for me. And it's also me learning to balance things within myself. That's just working on one leg. It's been so long since I made my blood flow. Like I did not have access to my body. And you see that was harming the entire humanity. It was manifesting a Holocaust. It's the spirit of the times. But when you take action, you do something about it. You see, this Mars retrograde is so good. We reflect on I take a different sort of action. And we have time to reassess, to reevaluate. And a traveling person and a non-traveling person is the difference sometimes between a world war, okay, and a prospering society where you can be who you are. And I see a lot of people that when they live on welfare, they think it's parasitic. But actually, it began with me refusing to be parasitic, but to excess so much that now I need to complete the rest and tend into myself, self-care. And it's so much so when something happens, you're afraid to fly. Not to fly like on a plane only, but It's like very genuinely, I can walk on my feet physically, but to get up on your feet, you have to change your entire structure. If I think about all these, JFK people that were talking about, Shinzo Abe. Okay, he wasn't like a saint, right? But they're talking about the plan to enslave humanity. And combating that, but it's also for within society, and it's also, using wealth to grow prosperity. And I think that people that were born out of a sense of community, they were basically tortured. It's very difficult to reconnect. And when you're marginalized, you see things that others don't see. And sometimes you understand there's no reason to speak because they don't understand. They wouldn't understand you. And when you try to bridge things, then you cannot deliver for your whole message. People meet that at where they are. I know that when I talk about Hitler painting nice paintings, people get traumatized, and that can yield a lot of things. But it's not about me not saying that, because that dumb fuckery is true. And this is the why and how people who don't make money from art. AI could do so many things. You could do AI and give dividends to people and share the dividends. Every time somebody uses the money, changes hands on an AI, you could get the dividends, and you could get it even digitally, and that could be so useful. And so you paint one painting that you forgot about at 13, and then at 60 you maybe can buy a house because of that. We could do all that with AI. When I was in shelter, there was a woman from, I think, Romania. She did not know a word Dutch, and she did not know a word English. We communicated through Google Translate. And I told her what the advice that I was given from a channeler, to make every place cozy. And it's a Dutch thing, but when you're in such trauma, you forget about this. And she made this, and then she got more opportunities as well. And we communicated thanks to Google Translate. That's it. So with AI, when it comes to art, think about the many people that could begin to get royalties on each and every artwork. And you can paint something and begin to incorporate that in a giant artwork where you bought a part of something bigger than you, and you get to earn money from that. And I was thinking about such a thing about dividing. You think about if you open a company so that the wealth divides with using a digital system, but not just social credit score. You could cut off people and so on. And that, we cannot replace political culture. But we create political culture in this day and age when you're aware of that, because political culture is what we create. And in the age of Aquarius, a lot of people get to see the nervous system, and they get to begin to explore for themselves. And this is why Aquarius is so associated with sciences. I only have Psyche in Aquarius. I don't even have like a planets in Aquarius or something. And Saturn's in my 9th house. So having an outer planet in Aquarius is now revival time for me, because that it pops up again. And by the way, if I think about between the time that Neptune was in Aquarius and the time that Saturn ingressed to Aquarius, I had a friend who was Aquarius, Sun and Saturn. So I just needed that Aquarius placement in my life. And so even though it's my 12th house and so on, is something that's very contributing to make that Aquarius placement pop. Because it's my 12th house and I came to bring here things. The ruler is in the ninth, is international teaching, worldview, philosophy, and it's also connected to my 11th. And of course, I have Uranus in my 10th, the ruler, so that could be creating a way more Aquarian placement than even though you don't have actual planets. This says both by the merit of rulership, but it was very interesting that at the time where I didn't have something in Aquarius, that I had a person that had a placement in Aquarius, and I had a stellium in my 11th house when I think about it, and then Saturn ingressed, and I guess it was too much, and that replaced that. Like, I had to sever ties, and that replaced that Aquarius placement in my life. You think about United States has a moon in Aquarius, and the Finland is so very Aquarian. I got to know about Finland through mental health. I don't remember what Netherlands has in Aquarius. Anyway. Oh God. This aligns my spine. Now, Mercury is a conversation planet and communication. Right now, Mercury is retrograde in Sag, and it was crossing my Uranus. And so, but Mercury is also trade and children. So, yeah. Why am I thinking about Mercury right now? Maybe it's Mercury hour. It's also associated with the skin. Oh, there is a saying that Mercury exalts in Aquarius. Somebody said that on Twitter /X, and people begin to really bully her. And I hate it when it happens, but it's also like it is so fucking reasonable, because Mercury is such a mutable, okay, but it's on the mutable axis. It rules Gemini and Virgo, and mutable earth and mutable air. But Mercury is also, when you think about Mercury as exalting in Aquarius, this is where that mercurial quality of adaptability becomes fixed. And I find it so beautiful, because every day we need to do something different for the nervous system to be healthy. And if we have that mutability as a fixed routine, that every day we try something new, that is already healthy for the nervous system. This is why I do believe it's very true to say Mercury exalts in Aquarius, but it's not my invention. And the woman that said that, people bullied her, and I'm like, this is so fucking weird. Now I'm in my left foot, and the minute I turn to my left foot, I began to think about Mercury. Yeah. I think so many things in astrology, we have attributes. Think about Scorpio, and I talked about the well water when I was working in the garden, and the fact that we don't really have appraisal of the well water, because we will see Scorpio, the well water sign, totally differently when we have fresh well water, which means we have forests, we have good filtering for the soil, and so on. That pertains to so many things and myths we have around astrology as well. 8th house, we consider it house of betrayal. Well, because our economy is built on cults that are associated with betrayal and casting spells, and you always have to betray, and it's like nobody can be joyous around anybody. Everybody constantly has to tend to people, trying to stab them in the back or in the front or whatever. And that's just dumb fuckery. And as I'm tending to my left feet, to my left, like, leg all up to the knee, that thing, okay? It's a double bind, the double blind, the dual. Now, Mercury is good with good and bad with bad, but the thing is, when there's so many double agents, it's like broken mirror already, and that's the effect, okay? You think about two people to say, I'm good with good and bad with bad. Okay, they don't really have, okay? Everybody adapts themselves to one another. And Aquarius is the water bearer. An Aquarius colleague, astrologer, is also a holistic healer. And his technique was always, did you sleep enough? Did you drink enough? Did you move enough? And it's such an Aquarius thing to bring in the water. Now, it's an air sign. It's a fixed air sign. But this is about the quality of the air and the quality of the water. I was thinking about air and water today. Yeah. So I think that the fracture where a person wants to do good and then wants to manifest harm, that is what we need to tend to in the cult, because that would make it a not cult. People always think they have to do harm to do good, and to do good to do harm. I think about what the places where I have it myself, where I feel like I have to get away with doing something good. In my life as well, I think about my jobs. When I started to work, by the way, my boss was Aquarian. When I started to work in editing, I was sneaking into. But there's a little quality about that, because also when I started to work my garden, I was sneaking into. And then for this person saw me, it's like, oh, what are you doing here? And I was like, no, I'm leaving. I says, no, I need a TA. Fortunately, he was not abusive. So that was basically how I started working as a TA in editing. I had a job in editing when I finished high school. But the industry, oh my God, the industry. To me, that's like, oh. Think about your 12th house as the place where people can connect with you energetically. But this is also where they can feel unseen, and is also considered house of hidden enemies in the bedroom. I think that if people tended to their bedrooms, it wouldn't be the house of hidden enemies. Sexpionage. It's so weird. The house of 8th house after marriage, considered house of betrayal. Like, why the fuck, if not for the economy, the space of satanic ritual abuse? 12th house is house of hidden wealth. Also use house of hidden enemies. Why the fuck, if people tended to their bedroom and were not ashamed about bedroom, were not, it's also where people have undoing, addiction. But it's basically about tending to your attic every now and then, tending to your bedroom. My bedroom is messy. There was a window in the property. There was a window open, and I guess through the cameras or through astral projection they used that, and I got the symbolism that through the window they do something. So I just posted a paper that said the name of the makler, and I said that he's doing human trade, and to abolish human trade back to sender. So I sent the message very clear. and its intention with an altar and all that. Because hey, the fuck, I have the right to be happy in my bedroom, right? Will and consent. And this is where, like this is what prevents political assassination. It's that and abolishing satanic abuse. I don't want to get assassinated, then, that's the house of hidden enemies. I said what I said. No, but it's true. It's true. You see, 8th house, considered house of betrayal, loss, debt, over nothing. It's all about how economy is set up. Okay, if it's a set of betrayal and extortions, then people can have a happy marriage. And 12th house, house of hidden wealth. But it's also hidden enemies. Why would you have hidden enemies if you didn't rape anybody, if you do, or if nobody wants to make you rape anybody, or nobody wants to rape you, okay? And why would anybody want to rape you? I mean, it's not about getting sex, it's about power and control, because they feel disempowered, because they're mind controlled, but you're usually not the enemy. So this is kind of like, that's the 12th house. Think about 12th house is jails, prisons, I don't know what's the difference, hospitals, asylums, but also retreat. This is your summer house. 12th house, especially if it's far away land. So think about what's in common with all these places. They should all be beautiful and serene. Why are they not? Well, because of the things that you're running from. And when you tend to that, got better bedroom life. So if people also have enough space, then they don't have hidden enemies every time they make love, because people are not jealous. But it's like a movement, okay? You make some noise, then your neighbors make some noise, then everybody makes some noise. It's like, either you're going to space yourself up, or you're going to have an orgy, I don't know. But if somebody wants to exploit it and do a human trafficking hub, okay, gotta take out that mushroom. And I understand, what do you do with the dumb fuck? Okay? Because it's like, hey dude, what's your problem? You need money. Like, you understand, if you didn't do that dumb fucker, you might be a part of the orgy right now. Why you undermine yourself like that? Because I need to go to work. This is very funny. It has no, your argument is missing something, and that's an argument. When you get to the nitty gritty of that, it's all very silly. Like, but I have, there was a BBC sketch, it's not a sketch, it was an interview of someone that had something hung in front of the window, and they could not remove it. It was not allowed to remove it. I asked why. There was an entire show made about that, and it looked like a Monty Python skit. Apparently it was about the right to light. There was nothing built there, but if nobody can build there, because he would have the right to light if you remove that dumb fuckery. I think it should legally be removing that dumbfuckery, because you need to have the right to light. This is going to be such an issue in Aquarius, because Aquarius is opposing Leo, and Leo is sun, which is the light. So think about another good condition for your nervous system supportive housing is the right to light. I experience it so much right now because here in the city, I don't know why, when I lived previously in the city, I was in a house that was great lighting, it was natural lighting. And then I moved to outside, and then the only problem was that I was doing the videos for my bedroom, but it was still good lighting. Here is no good lighting. And I know why, because my parent has Pluto in Leo, in the 8th house. And I'm the 8th house right now. And the lighting is not enough. We need to talk about the right to light. Because you need to have good exposure to sunlight. And also to record video, I would record with natural light. And yeah. So the right to light is also important in your housing. Just brushing my skin. And you see, you need to be doing that every day. They had the videos of Black don't crack and Asian don't raisin. And it sounds like they have some sort of particular attribute. It's nothing. They have a habit where they grease themselves. They oil up. Now, anywhere there's a Pluto ingress, you might be wanting to oil up, because Pluto is oil and nervous system. And look how I'm working on exactly the part of the leg between the feet and the knee. I don't remember, it's like calves. It's just this Aquarian part. They're constantly working on that. And to move the blood, especially with the Pluto square Pluto, really requires some tending to. And when people do that every day, okay, with 3 hours, that means you do that, you may have family time, or it's a good way to pass your day. And then you can have good skin and good thinking and discussions. And it's also, when you do that, it's not, how should I say it? You might need some time alone, because you need to, merge with your own nervous system. But it's just absolutely something that people could do together. And when you think about that as a family habit, this is why Asian don't raisin and Black don't crack, because they grease themselves, and then your skin doesn't age. But then you can go to work and you can have, good working routine, but because you make your blood flow, even if you're sitting, and then you have good rest as well, a good sleep. You see, all these things that I didn't tend to in a while, because I was tending to other things. Now I'm retending to. With this Mars retrograde is also going back to doing certain things. And Leo is my 6th house of health. If you think about the 12th house is your mental health, and your 6th house of physical health. 6 is also where we have service to people. My ruler of the 6 is in the 3rd. So this is a podcast of me doing that. And that is managing the T-square, because I'm getting it all the fixed axis when I'm making the blood flow. Scorpio, that's my 9th. Okay, so 6 to the 12th, 3 to the 9th. I love delineating that. And this is a routine that I have been missing in my life. You really need to do that every day. Do people even take 3.5 hours for them every day? Let me ask you a question. When was the last time you took 3.5 hours for yourself? a day, not twice a week. You see, this is knowledge from experience, but it ain't like I'm not a trained holistic practitioner. How can I work with you if you don't make the time to work with you? And then you would say, if you made the time, you wouldn't have the money. Well, no, if you change your pricing model. I much rather you listen to my podcast, even if you have some space between your brain cells and the wavelength, to make space for self-care for yourself. You understand you need it more. Even that is supportive to me right now. Even that, you know, even if all people right now would take 3.5 hours for them, no matter what you do for work, every day, first of all, so many more people would have a place to work in a way that is not limiting their schedule. And that work is not a slavery. So I even volunteer right now for 3.5 hours, because you're gonna hear this video. This video is gonna be uploaded, right? It's gonna be 3.5 hours for free for you, that you can do this exercise with me, that you can listen to this while doing other things, depending on other things. Okay? That you can begin to reconnect. You see, this for me is better than to sell you some essential oil blend you'll never use. Always complain. And I'll have to report reports. And then you'll try to come at me and try to make me go for this MK Ultra bloodline trafficking or whatnot. I'm like, fuck it. Take this podcast, listen to it. Just make the 3.5 hours a day. If you can't make it, you know, when I worked in the garden, I told the story a couple of times, to send a watcher over the place. I see the guy standing for hours. I'm like, dude, I would never be able to stand like that. And I told him, they're not going to pay. Whoever putting you here, they're not going to pay you. If they betray you like this, they make you work like a slave, they will not going to pay you. See, when I work, when I do this yields. Okay, the rain's gonna come and stuff gonna grow. If they make you work like a slave, they're not gonna pay you. If you're gonna pay you, they're gonna change the currency. You gotta be consistently well treated, so you can have a time for yourself to think. You think, why would I work for somebody else? Well, that depends. If you already do your thing and you come to help some people for a couple of hours, then why the fuck not, right? By the way, I was at the place where we removed the condoms and we made the farm. They removed that. They made a parking lot. The park for the exercise and the dog still stays. And they do work in the place, but it's kind of like, I don't know where they moved the farm. I need to see. I know who to ask, but it's kind of like, that was just so fucking weird. And I don't know how it goes with the traffickers right now. So I guess I'm gonna have to do a visit in the neighborhood and ask the people. I lived there for 5 years. Right? 5 years, yes. My God. But I hope the place gonna be better, because not to let it get abandoned with all their plans to make every city a ghetto. It all began when we had a friend in the Masons, and he talked about making cities profitable. No, Making a city profitable is a concentration camp, if you didn't get it. It's an ecosystem and it works, yes. But not everything is markets. But the thing is, when people were traded since they were in the womb, okay, then they never learned something that is not market. And they just learn to work their way through markets. And they put it on themselves that they have to be profitable at every move that they make. And adapted their move accordingly. And when a child was so tortured and they had to torture to survive, it's very weird, okay? It's a different world. And that world it was also secret until people like Lars, like Trudy, okay, like the White March, but more so Lars, Trudy, Annika Lucas, Ronald Bernard, okay, even Jack Rye to some degree, began to speak. And not only began to speak, they began to be in our algorithms. So we can connect more dots and we understand more things. Did you know that did you think that there is a connection between a woman that escaped violence, a husband whose wife wants a divorce, and a JFK? Did you know that they are all assassinated by the same CIA? Blood flow. I make my blood flow around my hips right now. Hips, thighs, Jupiter. Career. Sag. Oh. This is what it is. I cannot make it up. When it comes to my thighs, I'm a thick girl. This is why I'm glad I grew up on black music, because I didn't grow up heroin chic. And as a white girl, that's a blessing. But the bad thing with rap industry was the detachment from the body. So it was very the big dissonance about it's good to have thick thighs or thick hips or something like that, but it's not, but you don't actually get connected with your body. But this is not a black people disease, it's a worldwide disease, and it would be only after the Me Too where I would work and sell basically tips to self-pleasure courses where for that industry begin to boom. And yeah, and I found out what the reality check is, that pretty much the whole world needs an update. Okay, on that level. But it changes because people, that depend on how far off we are, that it changes things. I had an Aquarian colleague that she did astrology, and she was coming from pharmaceutical industry, and just like really smart person, and she appreciated me. And then I was just very naively saying, she was also a stripper, so I was saying, my God, you have ability to be connected to your body for the while doing that, and you're talking about the stripping and for the studies. I said, and it's also important that it's impossible for a person to fund a degree in USA without doing that, without doing sex work. And she blocked me. I don't know if she blocked me or she just unfriended me and never responded to me ever again. And I'm like, okay, I'm the type of person who I would address that, because it's not like you could do a degree and fund it for yourself without being a sex worker. And it also is it's genuinely, for me, it's difficult to be present in my body. I don't think I could do such dance and be present in my body. Think about strippers is dancing, okay? So there's nothing wrong with sensuality or sexuality, but the thing is, I don't think I could do that and be present in my body, and perhaps I hit the trigger, I don't know. Because I would think that that's embodiment, but it's kind of not. And then I lost a friend. By speaking up. But I told you the story about my relationship coach, right? She was doing an apprenticeship. She was doing an apprenticeship on me. And then I was learning for these self-pleasure courses. And we talked, and I talked about orgasm from, like, cervical orgasm. It's not about orgasm from penetration. It's about the cervical orgasm. She crashed on me for all the pressure that women have to come from cervix or come from penetration. And I'm like, my God, that's not how I meant that. I meant that it's requiring certain sort of surrender and certain sort of safe environment that we still need to build a society. And her teaching about the relationship was like, you cannot ever fully give yourself fully. It's like you always to keep something. I was like, what about cervical orgasm? I'd like to have that with my husband or with my partner. And she crashed on me. She told me, I understand that it's something because I have a trigger. But this is all, for example, like that would be a revolution of how we teach relationships. Don't ask me, like, I don't remember when was last time my cervix ever got something. It's not weird entities, because this world is a bit creepy right now. But yeah, if you think about what is the antidote to this, with Scorpio, it's not a problem. What's the biggest taboo in the possible world that you could possibly talk about? And right there. Taurus is the pleasure of embodiment. Leo is being who you are. I have a right to be who I am, have a right to be safe, to be vulnerable. This was my argument with Itamar, because I was like, your vulnerability makes me be sadistic or whatnot. And I was like, I should be safe to be vulnerable in a relationship. I have Nessus and Degenera in Leo, and this is horror for me. And my soul opposite Saturn, which can also limit the vulnerability and create constraints on my shine, my heart, which is annoying. Yeah. I need to remedy that by making my blood flow, because Saturn in Scorpio, so blood, so making my blood flow. And Aquarius, just kind of a giant nervous system. It's detachment, but it allows us to connect everything. The air quality that gives us the space to do these Scorpio things, to be who we are. Think about like social media or mass media. When I write something on my page, fuck it, nobody has the right to say anything to me. I mean, in the sense that, like, yeah, you can talk or you can comment, but in the sense that nobody has the right to criticize who I am. They can comment, they can think, they can this, but not for to cancel or and so on. And this gives us the space to connect the things, connect the dots. Our skin, for example, not only is the giant nervous system, is the biggest organ in our body. Yes? Oh, thank you. Meanwhile, while I'm doing that, I gathered myself some waffles, some clementine, mandarin, and nice pita with nice meat. So I'm packed with food. That yielded Because this is lovely. You're gonna be hungry after such a session. Think about the skin is the biggest organ in our entire body. And I don't know for you, maybe I sound crazy, but for me, it's not usual that I take that much time to move my blood around. That in itself is blasphemy. It's abomination. It's caused a lot of drama in my life that attracted wrong people to me. And then they would be surprised because it's like, it doesn't seem like I ever take the time for me, so why should they consider me, my interest, my way, my this, my that, and then they run into a 22 Saturn retrograde ruling over an entire called the Go Back to Sender. And I did not see that one coming. But you see, when somebody is exploited, it already puts the dynamic in a place where, you know, a lot of things have to change and adjust. But one of these things, as a result of that, is me tending to me. It's kind of like, oh, that was even missing. That was like a missing, like a blind spot in my life, that I was tending to threats so much that I had no time to tend to me, and I knew it. But now, with this Mars retrograde, I'm tending to me, and all of those that try to make me not tend to me, I think regret the day that the brain cells invented such dumb fuckery. But a good antidote would be to do as I say, to take the time to you, 3.5 hours now, and begin to tend to yourself. Because if you've been so out of line in yourself that you've been trying to narrow my path, then you probably need to take way more time to yourself as well. So it's polarities. Because if what you do with your taking your time to yourself is trying to make me small, then you make yourself very tiny. So tiny it could fit into a little jar where to put the sand of the people that kill themselves that way. Saturn is also grave, but also 4th house is grave. And my Jupiter right now is in the 4th house of graves. So if it's not your time, don't try to limit my housing, my space, my tending to myself, my shine, my visibility, my resources, and you will not have to fit into the tiny jar where they put the people that they burn the body. Very relaxed. You see, blood flow is important. Because when you tend to that, you remember. In Israel we have families where the children, they threaten each other in death ever so constantly. The Hebrew is the you want to die is very strong in Israeli culture as well. It's not just in American. And they treat it so casually. But 4th house is also the grave. That's why I need to travel sometimes. This is actually news to me when I think about this, because the association with death and house to me has been incredibly traumatic. And death and housing. Oh God, I'm not gonna say. I'm too exhausted to tend to that topic now. Yeah. Entire cultures that are based around ritual sacrifice, when they build houses, entire construction what is based on slavery, so many things need to change. All of those things. Okay, housing. Moon is housing, Mars is real estate. Cannot be that real estate business is not compatible with housing. Yeah, let that one sink in for a sec. Now that's a lot to tend to. But you see, if each and every one of us is gonna take 4 hours for themselves each day, first of all, a lot less cellulite, I can tell you that. It's not just the exercises that you do to activate the muscles, but also to make the blood flow. And the less anger. Anger is stored in hips as well. And it's anger to do with housing, fertility, upbringing. This is holistic because when you tend to your body in that way, you move energy around, move the blood around. That's holistic healing. That's the praxis. Okay, because I could speak with you forever, but when you hear me while I'm tending to myself and you actually hear what it's like, what is coming up, where my bloodline is, what it tends to, what it does. Where my anger is at, or where that's not about the getting to know, because I am dynamic. Tomorrow I won't be the same person. The blood will flow, is rejuvenated, so it will be different. That's why when I talked about profiling, it doesn't fit, because the whole issue is that we are dynamic. And so should be. The nervous system, okay, the first time people walk in the room trying not to bump each other, they bump. Second time they bump. Third time better. Fourth time, fifth time they already flow. And that's the thing. I can see my liver needs some attention because some yellow in my feet. And liver is anger. Chinese medicine call it the army commander. It's about boundaries. So my boundaries need to be more respected. It's good time later to tend to my just do it finger and the nail and to remove the Pluto thingy there. The Pluto thingy with the army commander. Just do it. Okay? I cannot make this up. Now see what happens if a person like me now get killed. What happens is very simple. I take with me the problem to the grave. It means that the problem is not solved. And that means that the problem with the liver of the army commander is also undiagnosed, and they can die from that. See, we are interconnected. But then if I live and I resolve this and I purge this, army commander, liver, lives, prospers, alive, well. Jupiter also associated with liver. That means I should relax, right? Should be in an environment that is relaxing, that my boundaries are respected. Okay, so bringing that in, making the blood flow, but to allow it in and understand it's not on the account of anybody. That interconnectedness. This is also when we begin to have not the inversion of knowledge, but the actual knowledge. We are sovereign, it's true. Our sovereignty is important to our interconnectedness. And then when we are sovereign, we can rediscover interconnectedness in a way that brings more flow, blood flow. Okay, not blood flow on the crime scene or blood flow in the war, but blood flow within our sovereign bodies arise for actions, and when our nervous system interconnects benefically, and we align so that we don't create bloodshed, but we have good blood flow within our bodies. Tending to the blood flow in my feet as I'm speaking. See, this is how we create willing consent, okay? We move energy around and express ourselves in our own space. Just to think about my entire life and the fact that I did not do this like that for 40 years. It's a blue ocean. It's not for a reason that to say, it's for a reason to say life begins at 40. I'm 40. Even they say Jung said, I don't know if it's Jung or some patient he plagiarized, but Jung said, prescribed to him, life begins at 40, up until then you're just doing the research. Now there's something nice when we talk about our own taboos or something is exposed that at first is very scary, because the person who's exposing that is very afraid. Or sometimes somebody says something very casually. Okay, I had a conversation with the American person who told me, yeah, I raped a teenager when I was young, and I have a son at the age of my child that I don't know. He says sometimes people rape. He said I also raped, and I saw this as a person who really did deep work with himself to be able to say that outright, not justify that, just say that that happened, and that's still on. That still bothers him. He's an old man right now, a grandfather. He has just to accept that happened, doesn't know how to change that, how to compensate for, all need to change himself, which he did.